Chapter 1864. Amidst the endless curses and mocking laughter, the three contestants stood in front of Su-yi at the same time. "Brat, do I admit that you are stupid or courageous?" Sikong Shua emitted a chilling aura as the long sword in his hand formed a snow-silver sword flower. Suddenly, a huge wave rolled behind him. The sweet and fishy sea breeze brought with it an unparalleled wind and waves, forming a huge soul pressure that crushed towards Su-yi. Zing! The golden saber smashed deeply into the ground. Qing Shuang's broad waist lowered his shoulders, and his bronze skin emitted a crackling sound like a cannonball. It was an impressive and indescribable sight. "Brat, don't blame us for bullying you. You asked for it." Qing Shuang roared like a demonic beast, which made people tremble in fear. The third contestant, who was inexplicably implicated, had a thirst for blood in his long and narrow eyes. He spat out his red tongue like a venomous snake. It was as if he was bound to win this duel, and it was all thanks to Su-yi's stupid decision. "Brat, show me your weapon. Otherwise, leave your hands and feet behind." The sinister and arrogant voice was like sandpaper, causing everyone's eardrums to buzz. Some of the sect masters felt a chill in their hearts, but the people from Yutian Palace and Bawang's sect were calm and natural. It was as if Su-yi was already used to a 1-on-3 situation. Su-yi smiled indifferently. He estimated that those who could enter the 8 reverends list were not ordinary people. Su-yi could feel the powerful pressure and killing intent from the 3 contestants. However, all of this was like dust in front of Su-yi, who was at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm. Without using the Origin Supreme technique, Su-yi's soul spirit spread out, and the scene in front of his eyes became clear again. Stopping his footsteps, Su-yi's eyes were obviously flickering with faint flames. Unarmed and unarmed, he gestured to the 3 contestants to start the duel. The hidden coldness made the 3 of them feel even more humiliated. They only heard a loud bang. The 3 of them leaped high into the air and displayed their talent. Their origin chi radiance was like a waterfall, oppressing the space and greeting Su-yi's body. Su-yi's jade-like fingers slapped down vertically, and the wings behind his back condensed, turning into a ball of fire in the air. Like a ghost, he shuttled back and forth between the 3 without any warning. "Come on! Cut the crap!" Su-yi curled his lips and shouted in his heart. This time, Su-yi wanted to thoroughly establish his might, especially in front of these aristocratic families. The moment he soared into the sky, the wings behind Su-yi's back flapped like lightning. Su-yi and Long Tsang looked at each other and their lips curled up. Then, they disappeared again. Boom! What? He's gone. The 3 contestants were shocked. Where did he go? Qing Shuang roared with a trace of fear in his fierce eyes. Su-yi's speed was simply beyond their imagination. In just an instant, he had disappeared above the void. The other 2 contestants brandished their weapons continuously, forming a fine sword wall. They were frantically trying to sense Su-yi's location. All of this was clearly seen by the sect masters outside. Su-yi was just less than an inch behind them, but the 3 of them couldn't sense him. The experts' eyes were solemn as they pointed at what was happening inside and started to discuss. Everyone's expression wasn't good. Impossible. Su-yi's speed is definitely not at the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm. Could this brat have been hiding his strength all along? At this moment, the other duels had already begun. However, it was obvious that Su-yi had become the focus of the first duel. Under the origin chi light rain that filled the sky, the colorful sword chi was like a rainbow. In the distance, the floating clouds were surging. Below them, the origin chi bombarded. The origin chi that was constantly released was shocking and the void was trembling. A sect master expert roared and pointed at Su-yi's duel and said, "Su-yi is there. Not good. The 3 of them are in trouble." The faces of the experts from the 3 sects turned ashen. They originally thought that they would win the duel, But suddenly, the situation changed and the situation changed. Swish. Countless spectating experts were shocked at the same time. In the depths of their pupils, there was an azure figure that was rapidly rotating between the three of them. Su Yi's palms moved continuously. He revealed a faint wry smile and said, "Too weak. With your strength, you shouldn't have challenged me." As soon as his voice faded, Su Yi pushed out a majestic Tao connotation of heaven and earth. The vigorous energy was like the waves of a great river. The palm prints that filled the sky swept across the sky and slapped on the backs of the three of them like lightning. 3 muffled sounds of bones breaking could be heard in the void. In the next second, the 3 of them fell to the ground like cannonballs. The 2 participants at the 3rd level of the Origin Emperor realm were pale. Their eyes rolled back as they fainted. Qing Shuang, who was at the 4th level of the Origin Emperor realm, shook his dizzy head and immediately spat out another mouthful of blood. His face turned even paler. His gaze changed greatly and his aura was extremely weak. His eyes were covered with blood and couldn't see anything. The golden saber in his hand was dancing wildly. The golden force filled the void like a chain of cannonballs. The space in front of him was cracking inch by inch. The ripples were spreading everywhere. It was extremely terrifying. Instant kill? Su Yi instantly killed 3 Origin Emperor Realm experts? How did he do it? Why didn't I see him using any martial skills? The eyes of some experts and elders were filled with radiance. The shock that they hadn't felt for a long time flashed across their eyes. The surrounding battles were still going on intensely, but Su Yi's side had already ended the battle of the 3 in an extremely strange way. How could this not make people excited? Excited? Shocked? Countless pairs of astonished eyes scanned back and forth on Su Yi's body. Then, like a boiling pot, they started to discuss the battle just now. Hurry up and find out who Su Yi is. What is Su Yi's cultivation level? He is definitely hiding his strength. He must have used some strange martial skills or concealed weapons to launch a sneak attack. Among the spectators, some of them couldn't believe what they were seeing. They were using all kinds of excuses to explain what had just happened. On the stage, Su Yi's body was erupting with energy. The boundless energy waves were like surging waves. An ancient force seemed to have crossed the river of time. It was extraordinary. After landing slowly, Su Yi's long robe fluttered behind him. Once again, he displayed lightning speed. With a flying kick, he kicked Qing Shuang to the side. Bang! Qing Shuang's huge and thick body landed heavily on the ground. Looking at the bloody body that was emitting an endless amount of energy, everyone came to their senses. Su Yi really had the strength. Moreover, he had the absolute strength that was comparable to dominating Si Santong and Yuqi Changfeng. So strong. At the same time, the heaven-defying instant kill made the surrounding fighting stages stop. Their eyes were looking at Su Yi, who was like a killing god, as though they had seen a ghost. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1865. In the distance, Su Yi was cleaning up the stage. With 2 more kicks, the other 2 cultivators fell off the stage like birds with broken wings. From afar, Su Yi stood with his hands behind his back. At this moment, he was surrounded by a divine halo. His eyes were filled with arrogance. Good! Su Chun exclaimed and gave Su Yi a thumbs up. Under the purple veil, her jade-like nose twitched. Her bright eyes flickered with starlight. The corners of her mouth curled up, causing the veil to flutter. Su Wanner nodded. The big brother Su Yi in her heart had never changed. The big brother Su Yi who had once said that he would protect her and not let anyone bully her was standing right in front of her. Her soft and delicate hands were like white jade. When she raised them into the air, her eyebrows curved slightly. Her eyes dimmed, but she lowered them again. Her delicate body moved slightly under the tight clothes to hide her anxiety and hesitation. Lon Balian saw the actions of Su Chun and Su Wanner. Her hair was messy, and her eyebrows were long and delicate. The corners of her slender eyes revealed a hint of undetectable meaning. She met Su Yi's gaze across the air and smiled. This time, Lon Balian had made the right bet. Surprise flashed through her eyes. Lon Balian knew that Su Yi had the strength to compete with any genius of the aristocratic families. However, all of this had happened too quickly. Too quickly. That time in the barbaric demon forest had been exchanged for such a big surprise. Good brat. Your cultivation is not bad. Yenmia Tian slapped his thigh. In a short period of time, Su Yi had defeated 3 cultivators. What kind of heroic spirit was this? Su Yi stood proudly, facing Draconis and Long Tsang. Draconis's eyes shone with a bright light. Long Tsang's killing intent was so strong that it was burning hot. His blood and chi surged as if it had materialized outside Long Tsang's skin. From afar, it was as if there were several roaring golden dragons that were about to fly out. The pressure of the entire world instantly became gloomy. The unparalleled power was like rolling thunder. Su Yi took a step back, and the heavenly origin demon soul in his body surged to its limit. Like a volcano on the verge of erupting, the blazing scarlet opened its bloody mouth, igniting the berserk factor in every meridian in an instant. On the 35th platform, Su Yi defeated 3 opponents by himself. Victory! The last word was like thunder in spring, throwing a huge rock into the hearts of countless people, making their scalps tingle. What was even more unbearable was the anxious martial artists at the side. At this level, even if one could jump ranks, others could also do the same. Victory and defeat were often decided in an instant. A second-level Origin Emperor might not be much weaker than a third-level Origin Emperor. Just a small mistake could easily cause one to fall into a life-and-death situation. The 3 martial artists were quickly dragged off the platform by the people from the demon-subduing sect. A trail of blood formed on the ground, and the martial artists were already unconscious. Dozens of sharp gazes shot from the mud-like bodies onto Su Yi. A few roars shattered the clouds above their heads, turning them into mist and dissipating. Su Yi, although it was 1 against 3 on the platform, how could you humiliate my sect's disciples like this? A muscular man with a broad head and a wide back was filled with boundless anger. His eyes were filled with boundless anger, and he condensed his yuan qi behind him, wanting to rush up the platform to argue. The 3 people just now were the future pillars of their respective sections. They had always been the treasures in the hearts of experts and elders. It was fine if they lost, but how could they withstand such humiliation? Su Yi's 3 kicks were like kicking trash, cleaning up the battlefield. Su Yi shrugged his shoulders and sat down. His eyes were filled with coldness as he spoke in a low voice. 1 against 3, I don't think they rejected it. If the one who lost was me, do you think I would still be alive? A penetrating coldness could not be dispelled from his eyes. The 3 people just now had all used their killing moves from the very beginning. Everyone had seen it with their own eyes. Seeing the strange gazes from the surrounding experts, Broken Soul Island could only leave in embarrassment, flicking his sleeves and leaving. If anyone is unconvinced, I, Su Yi, will be waiting here. If I lose, I will also withdraw. This sentence caused the eyes of many first-rate forces to constrict. This Su Yi was too arrogant. Little bastard, you still dare to be so arrogant in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. The Sacred Fire Elder's beard flew up. Su Yi's arrogance immediately reminded him of the humiliation he had suffered in the Sacred Martial Assembly. His eyes flashed, and he gritted his teeth. Su Yi looked around, his chin raised high. When it was time to perform, he should perform. When it was time to be arrogant, he should be arrogant. What's more, Su Yi didn't believe that the Long family would intervene and resolve the matter if he openly challenged them. Su Yi had never guessed the purpose of the Long family's visit. Su Yi's arrogance naturally had a purpose. This was to test the Long family. Su Yi's eyes had never left Long Tsang from the beginning to the end. Su Yi smiled and stood with his hands behind his back. He was like a young human emperor, looking down at the world with disdain. I want to see how long you can endure. Long family. When Su Yi's gaze fell on the Lord's face again, the corner of his eyes slightly twitched. Soon, he quietly looked away. Sacred mountain, after heavenly wind, I will definitely go to your sacred mountain. Whether I live or die, it is up to you. This brat. The elders shouldn't have made him their enemy. The holy senior's watery eyes revealed a sense of profoundness. His subtle gaze shifted towards Duanmu Xiaoman, whose eyebrows were icy cold, her eyes filled with splendor, and he sighed inwardly. How far can he go for you? Curiously, the heavenly goddess, who had always looked down on all men in the world, frowned for the man in front of her. The Lord could not help but be more curious about Su Yi. My lord, this brat must die. Xinghua rolled up his sleeves. His fluttering hair looked like it was on fire. The entire atmosphere began to heat up. Are you asking Yuqi Changfeng to attack Su Yi again? 1 against 3, it's not like he has never done it before. The Lord did not hold a grudge against Yuqi Changfeng for what had happened in the demon cave. The holy mountain, which had always been high and mighty, had become a vassal of the divine tiger clan and the sky dragon sect when it was in the hands of Yuqi and Xinghua. A few short sneers made Xinghua's face turn red. He did not say anything else. Qi Xiefeng walked to Su Yi, bowed respectfully and said loudly. Qi Xiefeng did not know what the Qi Xiefeng said to him. Sect leader Su, if you don't have anyone to challenge, you can come down and rest. The competition to advance from 400 to 200 will begin soon. Hearing the words, sect leader Su Yi's eyes lit up. He jumped down from the fighting stage and returned to the Bawang sect and Heavenly Palace's camp. Brat, you did well. You're crazy. Merciless West patted Su Yi's shoulder heavily. The goal of this Tianfeng ranking tournament was to let the Bawang sect quickly reach the top and increase their strength rapidly. Wuchang Fairy, Green Emperor, and the others believed that Su Yi, who no longer held back, would definitely shock the world and soar to the top. The Bawang sect would completely walk out of the Chaos region and become the strongest force in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. The Bawang sect would never be afraid of the aristocratic families. Destroy the sacred mountain first, then find the Long family. Finally, it was time to settle the scores. Su Yi crossed his arms and warmed them up a little. Then, he looked at the other fighting stages. Chapter 1866. Su Yi's instant kill made the martial artists on the other stages work even harder. Sounds of yuan qi tearing through the void could be heard everywhere. Woo, woo. The air was torn apart and the sounds of metal clashing could be heard. 700 to 800 gusts of wind carried the energy of heaven and earth and shook everyone's heart. Seeing the geniuses from their own sects fighting on the stages, the various sect masters were all smiling with gratification. However, the shadow that shrouded their hearts was still lingering. Su Yi's instant kill was like an overlord of heaven and earth. Who else on the stage could do it? That kind of arrogance and invincibility caused people's hearts to tremble. What kind of person was this Su Yi? Countless experts from the first-rate forces knew that Su Yi had never put the first-rate forces in his eyes. His eyes were only on the first-rate forces and even above the aristocratic families. What was even more unknown was that Su Yi had already started to yearn for the world outside of the sky barbarian continent. That vast and mysterious world and the elegant beauty that came through the demon race's passageway. Su Yi's instant kill just now was to tell everyone that he had the strength to instantly kill not only those 3, but also all the first-rate forces. At this moment, Su Yi's gaze was fixed on the 11th stage. That was where Lu Ruoxi was fighting. Lu Ruoxi's double hooks rose high up in the air. Golden radiance spread on them and made whooshing sounds. She was at the first level of the Origin Emperor realm against a lady at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm. Lu Ruashi's double hooks were spinning rapidly. The sharp blade cut through the air and went straight for her opponent's throat. Golden radiance circulated and an overwhelming attack was launched. With Su Yi's instant kill in front of her, Lu Ruashi also tried her best to catch up, hoping to enter the top 400. The lady opposite her was holding a purple long whip. She was from the Origin returning sect of the Sky Dragon continent. With a loud shout, she tore through the void. The long whip seemed to have a mind of its own as the surrounding space suddenly distorted. Immediately after, a whirlpool roared in the sky. The whirlpool was like a black hole that instantly sucked in the Saint King aura around Lu Ruashi. Su Yi's brows furrowed slightly. This Tianlong continent was indeed a top-notch continent. Even a first-rate force like the Guiyuan sect had such powerful strength. Saintess, you may leave. From the cheering experts at the side, Su Yi learned from the scroll that Lon Balian gave him that the girl fighting was called Dong Xian. She specialized in using the purple python whip. When he shifted his gaze to Lu Ruashi, he saw a golden aura erupting from her body. In the face of the giant purple python's whip, the sacred light around Lu Ruashi quickly condensed. With a cold gaze, Lu Ruashi also activated her Saint Ruler protective aura. The light around her was like a small sun, and the light wings on her back flashed. Break! Lu Ruashi shouted in her heart. The two hooks in his hands quickly shot out, transforming into two huge golden flywheels that collided with the purple python from afar. Rumble! There was an explosion in the void. The holy aura and the light of the demon python clashed together. The terrifying fluctuation in the air directly turned into a vast and mighty energy that spread out. Ruashi seems to be having a hard time defeating her. That giant python whip is able to suppress her strength. Su Yi felt a chill in his heart. Using his soul to carefully sense the attacks of the two, Su Yi's eyes flashed with a trace of sharpness. Su Yi was also concerned about Lu Ruashi's advancement. He stroked his chin and raised his head to look at the battle in the distance. This little girl Ruashi is really infatuated with you. She used the sacred weapon you gave her so quickly. Qi Feihong snorted angrily. Although he was afraid of Su Yi's ruthless methods, he was still brooding over the fact that his beloved treasure was given away by Su Yi to a beauty. That's right. Su Yi snapped his fingers. It turned out that Dong Xian's whip wasn't the only one with the ability to suppress attack. In addition, Lu Ruashi's sacred weapon wasn't sentient. Although it was comparable to a magic weapon in terms of power, it was far from the same in a battle. Thinking of this, Su Yi gradually frowned. He stared at Lu Ruashi's battle platform without blinking. His heart couldn't help but clench. Su Yi's gaze was immediately caught by the Lord. He could hear the Holy Fire Elder whispering beside him. This is strange. Why does the Ninth Saint have another sacred weapon? I remember that the Ninth Saint only has a double-blade magic weapon. The Lord raised his eyebrows slightly. He had already noticed the Holy Fire's discovery. At this moment, looking at Su Yi's performance, he understood. What Yuchi Chongfeng said wasn't completely false. At least, Lu Ruashi's sincerity was already with Su Yi. The Lord's face twitched slightly. He rolled his eyes and a thought flashed through his mind. Should Lu Ruashi prematurely take on all the responsibilities that didn't belong to her? Oh my God! The dazzling attacks of the 400 platforms filled the sky, and the flashing and moving of the platforms caused many of the defeated martial artists to exclaim in delight. Many of the sovereigns were also shocked. They exclaimed that there were new talents in every generation. This year's Tianfeng ranking tournament was even better than the previous one. The talents that were visible to the naked eye in the entire tournament meant that the Tianyan continent would definitely reach a higher level. Thinking of this, everyone looked at Su Yi, who was the first to kill his opponent. They couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. This unknown but miraculous young man had stunned everyone again and again. How far would he be able to go in the next round of duels? He would kill all the first-rate forces and then challenge the top forces. Finally, he would kick the aristocratic families off their pedestals. Of course, no one would have thought that Su-yi really had such thoughts in his heart. In the near future, all the aristocratic families would kneel before Su-yi. At this moment, Su-yi's eyes were burning with concern for Lu Ruashi's battle. On the 11th battle platform, Lu Ruashi made a somersault in the air. The Saint King protective chi around her quickly shrouded her body. After escaping from the giant python's demonic aura, her eyes shone with a golden radiance. The two enormous forces collided in the air. Dong Xian's lips twitched slightly. The long whip in her hand quickly rolled out a few waves. Roar! The shadow of the giant beast on the whip spread rapidly. Faintly, Dong Xian's curvaceous body could be seen following the giant python's mouth. She quickly broke through the energy barrier and pounced on Lu Ruashi like lightning. This move was astonishingly fast. It was close to the absolute speed of a second-level Origin Emperor. Su-yi watched Lu Ruashi's battle. It was far more thrilling than his battle on the stage. His palms were sweating. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. If he didn't feel sorry for his wife, who would? Boom! The fierce battle between the graceful beauty quickly attracted everyone's attention. Lu Ruashi's snow-white skin emitted a mystical radiance from inside out. Her aura shook the void. Her aura was incomparably vigorous. Lu Ruashi's eyes were as calm as water. Her body suddenly stopped moving. When she opened her eyes again, radiance shot out. Chapter 1867. At this moment, her aura was incomparably shocking. The holy light was dazzling, and the golden light filled the sky. Her hair danced rapidly under the radiance. Go down! Her voice was like thunder. Everyone could feel the majestic power. Lu Ruashi's hooks danced again, but her strength and speed were more than one level higher than before. Rip! The sound of cloth ripping resounded violently on the 11th battle platform. A golden light pierced through the sky like a whirlpool and slashed down heavily on the giant purple python. The python's head flew into the sky, full of demonic energy. The purple python that seemed to be alive turned into a long rainbow of demonic aura that filled the sky, dyeing half of the sky red. The one who fell to the ground was Dong Xian. A mouthful of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, and her eyes were bulging. She obviously couldn't believe what had just happened. Lu Ruashi walked forward slowly with her slender legs. Her eyes were like the moon, and her killing intent had dissipated. She spoke in a low but firm voice. You've lost. Dong Xian supported herself on the ground and stood up slowly. She still couldn't believe what had just happened. She smiled miserably and said, You're actually so strong after exposing your strength. The chi of a sage monarch is indeed worthy of its reputation. I've lost. Following Dong Xian's surrender, the 11th battle also ended with Lu Ruashi's victory. A cool breeze blew. Lu Ruashi took a deep breath and walked back to the camp with light step. Her slender neck slid past the defeated cultivator's eyes, and an indescribable evil fire was quickly ignited. With her fairy-like beauty, the 9th Holy Maiden's beauty was also very famous among the younger generation. Well done! When her slender figure passed by Su-yi, a low praise instantly entered Lu Ruashi's ears. Lu Ruashi's fairy-like appearance was immediately dyed pink. She didn't look sideways and slightly opened her lips. She bowed and nodded. At the same time, she lowered her body and made a gesture of returning the salute. Thank you. Her soft and delicate voice was full of sweetness. Compared to the cold voice she used to others, she was clearly expressing her true feelings. This action made the eyes of countless cultivators turn red with envy. They looked at the beautiful celestial maiden standing beside Su-yi and the 9th Saintess, who had a peach blossom face, favored Su-yi even more. The hatred in their hearts towards Su-yi burned even more fiercely, and they all shot murderous gazes at him. Su-yi naturally knew that Lu Ruoshi was thanking him for giving her so much spirit liquid and the Huanma's collection. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to break through to the second level of the Origin Emperor realm in such a short time. Before Su-yi could say anything, the Lord pulled Lu Ruoshi aside. His eyes were filled with love and excitement. Ruoshi, when did you break through to the second level of Origin Emperor realm? In the Lord's eyes, Lu Ruoshi was a little shy. He had treated her injuries after the first round, but he did not notice any signs of Lu Ruoshi breaking through. Lu Ruoshi wanted to say something but hesitated. The corners of her mouth curled up into a faint and charming smile, but her eyes were intentionally drifting towards Su-yi. The Lord understood immediately. Then, he pulled Lu Ruoshi back to the camp with a calm look on his face. At that moment, Xiahong House, Yuchi Changfeng, and the rest had won easily. Lu Ruoshi looked at Xiahong House, then turned her head away. Her hesitation before she came had been replaced by determination. Lu Ruoshi's eyes flashed with a trace of determination, then turned into a calm ancient well, as she looked at the other battle stages. In the second round of the Tianfeng ranking tournament, the first round was to advance from the top 800 to the top 400. Basically, it was a mess. First-class and top-class forces were mixed together. Some of the weaker sects would admit defeat if they encountered a sect like the Sky Dragon sect. There were even some who chose to give up when they encountered opponents like Tyrant Si Santong, Yuchi Changfeng, and Shangguan Juehu. Such an outcome was within the expectations of the sect masters. Basically, all the disciples from the top-class forces had successfully entered the top 400. As for the top 10 in the first round, they had already finished their battles long ago and were watching the fights on the other battle platforms with disinterest. Su-yi wrinkled his nose and observed for a while. The battles that were still going on were basically between first-class forces. One of the battles on one of the battle stages attracted Su-yi's attention. On the battle stage, there was a woman in an elegant gauze robe with wind attribute origin energy circulating rapidly in her hand. The tip of her sword pointed to the sky, and the vast and dense wind blades seemed to tear the space in front of her apart. A white tornado whistled as it rushed towards the opponent in the distance. Miss Sure. Su-yi raised his head slightly. The Azure Cloud Hall was also participating in the Tianfeng ranking tournament as the number 1 force in the Chaos region. The wind blades of the myriad returning swords swept across the void. Sure Susu's gauze robe fluttered as she fully unleashed her peak 9th level origin void stage strength, turning into a string of white afterimages. The long sword in her hand danced, and the ripples in the void were pushed extremely far away. Humph! The martial artist on the other side was also extraordinary. Su-yi clearly saw that it was the Holy Mountain's holy son, Yiyuhen. The snowy red house, Lu Ruoshi, Yiyuhen, Chang Mengli, and Qin Shuangyi followed Yuchi Changfeng to the Holy Mountain this time. Su-yi had seen Yiyuhen at the Tempest Gathering and Illusory Fiend Cave. He was a member of Yuchi Changfeng's faction. Yiyuhen's figure was slender, and his feet moved with profound and unfathomable steps. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer as he constantly dodged Sure Susu's attacks. His black hair was like a waterfall that was disorderly in the air. The corners of his brows were slightly raised, and it tugged at one's heartstrings. His long and narrow eyes revealed a trace of craftiness. Bang! Bang! Wherever the wind blades passed, sonic booms sounded out without end. But what shocked Sure Susu was that all the wind blades seemed to have grown eyes. Not a single one landed on Yiyuhen's body, and it was difficult for them to even approach half an inch. Yiyuhen, who had his hands behind his back, seemed to be playing with her and never took the initiative to attack. This caused Sure Susu to be both embarrassed and furious. The aura around her exploded once again and swept through the sky. If you want to fight, then fight. Stop pretending over there! Sure Susu shouted angrily. Many experts in the distance had already seen what Yi Yuhin was doing. They would occasionally cast their gazes towards Su Yi, who had already rested. Similarly, Sure Susu, Han Yuro, and Bai Ling were all from the Chaos region. Their performance during the queue naturally made them part of Su Yi's faction. Han Yuro and Bai Ling from the top forces. Han Yuro's cultivation was slightly stronger. She had already successfully entered the top 400 as she was only at the first level of the Origin Emperor realm. Bai Ling, on the other hand, had been defeated early on. But such a result was already enough to make the Taixing sect extremely happy. The storm whistled like a living creature, blowing the rocks on the stage high up into the air. Instantly, the entire space was filled with muffled sounds. Do you want to die so badly? The Chaos region is only SOSO. Only Su Yi is worthy of my attention. Yi Yuhin's second-level Origin Emperor strength suddenly erupted. In an instant, the Saint Monarch Chi's Origin Chi wind was like a raging wave crashing against the shore. It spread out in a circular shape and filled the entire space. A golden afterimage suddenly appeared. Yi Yuhin's footsteps turned, and the storm was instantly crushed by a huge hand. Yi Yuhin shouted loudly. The tyrannical Saint Monarch Chi turned into an invincible waterfall and rushed out. Those who are related to Su Yi, go to hell. Bang! A long line of blood flew out in the air. Sure Susu's shoulder was hit squarely by the palm. Suddenly, a large cloud of blood sprayed out. Chapter 1868. Like a butterfly with broken wings, Sure Susu's snow-white robe was instantly stained with a few drops of blood. High up in the sky, Su Yi's figure appeared like a ghost. He stretched out his hand and spun in the air like a divine bird spreading its wings. He skillfully caught Sure Susu and helped her consume the small drop of spirit liquid in his hand without leaving a trace. A trace of disdain flashed in Yi Yuhin's long and narrow eyes. His whole body was suffused with golden light. Looking at Su Yi catching Sure Susu, the people of Blue Cloud Hall beside him quickly rushed over. Their eyes were filled with anxiousness. The blood at the corner of Sure Susu's mouth had already stopped flowing when she landed on the ground. Xie Wushu spied on the vast aura circulating around Sure Susu's body. While he was shocked, he also glared at Yi Yuhin angrily. This guy is such a bully. Xie Wushu clenched his teeth. His eyes were burning with anger. His blood was boiling like lava. Yi Yuhin didn't restrain his aura in the slightest. In fact, after Su Yi's arrival, his aura became even more vigorous. He waved his hands in front of him, and the vast golden light was like a big net that wanted to wrap around Su Yi. Su Yi naturally knew that Yi Yuhin was doing everything on behalf of the Holy Mountain. He was representing Yuchi Changfeng. Putting Sure Susu down, Su Yi's green robe fluttered behind him. His sword-like eyebrows suddenly twitched. His deep and dark eyes were suffused with a penetrating chill and baleful aura. A terrifying baleful aura spread out from Su Yi's pores in all directions. It was like waves of fierce attacks were rushing out. Yi Yuhin naturally didn't expect Su Yi to actually release such a dense soul tornado. His gaze sank, and as sharp as a knife, he sized up Yi Yuhin from head to toe. Then, with a faint smile, his soul attack instantly turned into a spatial fluctuation and rushed forward with unstoppable force. Chi La! The space in front of him instantly rolled back and forth like wheat waves. Yi Yuhin's narrowed eyes immediately burst out with a bright light. He condensed a hand seal, and a golden protective Zhen Qi immediately wrapped around his entire body. Golden light filled the air, dazzling and mystical. Looking from afar, Yi Yuhin stood in front of the soul storm. His tall and straight body began to tremble slightly. On the other hand, Su Yi was like an unshakable boulder. Even if there were 1,000 layers of giant waves and 10,000 layers of sand, they were unable to move him in the slightest. The two of them are fighting. Yuchi Changfeng and the Sacred Flame Elder glanced at each other, their eyes cold and strange. Among the Saint Sons, Yi Yuhin was known for his soul force. His powerful soul force allowed him to easily deal with martial artists 2 levels higher than him. On the other hand, Lu Ruoshi and the Lord were calm, but there was a slight disappointment in their eyes. Yi Yuhin was throwing an egg at a rock. Most of the battles had already ended. The battle between Su Yi and Yi Yuhin immediately attracted countless gazes. Many fiery and curious gazes swam back and forth between the two of them. Both of them appeared to be at ease. The frightening spiritual vortex storm between their bodies suddenly caused the space to tremble. Bang! A muffled sound like a heavenly thunder was heard. Within the spatial ripples, there was a dazzling golden light that spread out like a sun. In a short time, a vast and domineering energy fluctuation appeared in the narrow space. Did Su Yi lose? A martial artist shouted. Lu Ruoshi's bright eyes were filled with excitement. Her jade-like fingers and white arms were slightly bent in front of her chest, and she smiled sweetly. Yi Yuhin lost. In an instant, in the midst of the golden ripples, a dazzling golden brilliance poured out from above the void, revealing a domineering and terrifying aura that even the soul could not withstand. The rolling golden brilliance was like a divine brilliance, spreading with an ancient and majestic energy. The entire space suddenly trembled, and runes that were powerful enough to destroy everything in the world spread out. Within the golden brilliance, a crisp muffled sound was heard. At the same time, Yi Yuhin's eyes bulged out, and his bloodshot eyes made him look like a mad beast that was fighting for its life. However, he could not stop himself from flying backwards. Thump, thump, thump. His legs were like lead as he took a few heavy steps on the thick black stone slab. Fine cracks spread out like a creeper. After 3 steps, Yi Yuhin let out a painful howl. He flew backward like a fallen leaf. When he landed on the ground again, his eyes were filled with shock, and even his voice began to tremble. When he wanted to stand up, he realized that his chest was severely injured. His face was as pale as paper, and his aura was extremely weak. Pfff. A large amount of blood mist also sprayed out from his mouth. The shock and fear made Yi Yuhin tremble like a sieve. He leaned against the edge of the battle stage behind him and gasped for breath. You are not only at the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm, Yi Yuhin said loudly. In the next second, his chest was filled with anger. His body swayed like a bellows, and just as he was about to collapse, a gust of wind swept out from behind him. Xinghua turned into a stream of fire and moved to Yi Yuhin's side to heal his injuries. Just as he placed his palm on Yi Yuhin's body, Xinghua's withered old face instantly twisted. He roared at Su Yi with all his might. Su Yi, you brat! How dare you commit violence in public? Since you hurt my 8th saint, this old man will take your life. Su Yi stood with his hands behind his back. He immediately circulated the Origin Supreme technique, and a vast and mighty power surged out like a ferocious tiger. The soul vortex around him instantly expanded by more than 2 times, and a lightning-like radiance shot out from his glabella. It was obvious that Xinghua was filled with shock and fear. Currently, Su Yi's soul energy was not inferior to an Origin Ancestor realm expert. In fact, it was much stronger. It had only been 1 or 2 years since the Sacred Martial Assembly ended, and Su Yi's rapid progress could be described as abnormal. Did I move? Su Yi's eyes were deep, and a heart-palpitating aura that no one could resist came crashing down. The cultivators nearby began to tremble uncontrollably, and many of those who had sneered at Su Yi before were now filled with endless shock and horror. Under Su Yi's aura, many people felt as insignificant as ants. The person standing opposite them was clearly a young human sovereign who could step on the 9 heavens and shake the heavens. What did you say? Xinghua supported Yi Yuhin with his hand. Facing the destructive aura, he instantly released a gloomy and cold aura. However, Sui did not care. A cold smile flashed at the corner of his mouth as he said in a clear voice, "Committing violence in public? Old man, which eye of yours saw me committing violence?" Everyone had clearly seen the fluctuation of aura just now. It was obviously Yi Yuhan's attack again. Like a whale sucking in water, a violent gust of wind covered Sui and the others. Hundreds and thousands of gazes looked at Yi Yuhan's battle stage at the same time, and discussions broke out. "Even though my saint attacked first, you still used such a vicious move. You deserve death," Xinghua shouted with a flushed face. His hands were clenched into fists, and his aura was about to explode under the great suppression. "I haven't even made a move, and he's already fallen. If this kind of trash dies and you're blaming me, is the Heaven Wind ranking tournament a game?" Sui sneered, and a terrifying soul energy spread out once again. Chapter 1869. With a few words, Sui threw the problem to Yi Yuhan and the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. If Xinghua still dared to say anything, then everyone who participated in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament would have to come and ask for an explanation. Who wasn't a baby? How could there be fairness in a world where martial arts were respected? Elder Xinghua stepped down. An old voice came from behind. Qi Mofeng waved his wrinkled arm, indicating for Xinghua to stop messing around. He glanced at the Holy Sovereign, who had a few fine wrinkles on her snow-white skin. Her bright eyes were filled with the intention to stop Xinghua. "Qi La." Elder Xinghua's fiery red robe fluttered rapidly, and the coldness in his eyes did not dissipate. He looked at Sui with a malicious gaze and said fiercely, "You injured my holy son in an unconventional match. I want an explanation from the aristocratic families." Xinghua did not give up and turned his attention to the aristocratic families, hoping that they would give him an answer. "Xinghua, don't mess around. It's normal for young people to not be able to hold back during a match. Is your family's martial arts competition made of paper?" Yen Mietian's broad palm danced in the air, and an extremely powerful energy spread out. "Holy Mountain, is this the situation now? Why aren't you leaving quickly? Are you making everyone wait for you?" Heavenly Monarch Yi was beautiful and dignified. Her beautiful brows were slightly curved as she spoke with a bit of anger. The two aristocratic families, one fire and one water, actually spoke at the same time. Everyone's eyes were filled with confusion, and they pointed at each other with suspicion. All the matches had already ended, and almost all the first-rate forces had been defeated. Nearly 200 people were already considered a battle between the top forces and the elites of the first-rate forces. Taking advantage of the gap, everyone looked at the stubborn elder on the stage. All of a sudden, Xinghua hugged Yi Yuhan, who was on the verge of collapsing. His face darkened as he turned around and buried his head in Yi Yuhan's arms. "Dragon God, please make a decision." Yun Zhongli of the Cloud Celestial Sect was also in the center, and his gaze was locked on Sui. Hidden in the depths of his eyes was a hint of anger and killing intent. "This old man is a little strange. I've never seen him before, but his killing intent is so strong. And Wanner seems to be afraid of this old man." Raising his eyebrows, Sui's footsteps changed again, and his aura became stronger and stronger, breaking through the barrier that Yun Zhongli had set for him. Sui stretched his arms and legs, disdain and seriousness shooting out at the same time. When he looked at Yun Zhongli again, Yun Zhongli looked away and pondered while looking at the holy fire. "Wow, isn't the sacred mountain a little shameless? Even though we're not in the competition, I can't beat you when I'm the one who took the initiative to hurt you. I'm on Sui's side this time. I'm standing on the sacred mountain. This is an outsider competition. Aren't you directly cutting off Yi Yuhan's path? I can't beat them. I thought that the upper reaches would be more powerful." The eyes of the onlookers were wide open. The sacred mountain, which had always been proud and aloof, had actually done such a shameless thing. It was like a stray dog that had found a random owner to comfort it. The onlookers sighed, felt pity, sneered, and even disdain. It could be said that the sacred flame had lost all its face this time. You don't say, Sui looks quite handsome. It seems like he's hiding his strength. It should be far beyond the second level of the Origin Emperor realm. He doesn't seem old either. I heard that he's from the Chaos region. To be able to stand out from that place and fight against the heroes, it's really inspiring. In an instant, the comments were turned around by the sacred flame. Many female martial artists looked at Sui with admiration and affection. Sui was shocked, but at the same time, he sneered. If the ruthless sacred emperor saw his descendant like this, he would probably crawl out of hell and kill you, sacred flame. If you can't beat them, fight them. If you can't beat them, make a scene. This was the sacred mountain, and this was how Yuchi Chongfeng's family did things. Sacred flame, how long are you going to make a ruckus? The Lord's elegant face also showed a bit of anger. Her slender fingers carried a bit of strength as she attacked Yi Shiwen. When Sui looked at the three major forces, Tyrant Si Santong was puzzled. Yuchi Chongfeng's expression was extremely awkward. While Shangguan Juehu sneered, his killing intent towards Sui was like a sea of blood. When he saw Sui, Shangguan Shenjua's entire body began to explode. His aura materialized and shot out. Ignoring the astonished gazes of the onlookers, Sacred Flame was obviously not moved. The Sacred Flame also knew that using force wouldn't solve the problem. Since that was the case, he would leave it all to the Tianfeng ranking tournament. Sui injured someone during a non-tournament segment. May I ask Dragon God, how should we deal with this? His voice reverberated like thunder. Under his white golden hair, his dark and gloomy eyes stared straight at the otherworldly expert in front of him. The cultivators below the stage were all puzzled. Hearing the Sacred Flame Elder's rage and murderous aura, they couldn't help but wonder why he would lose his composure when he was already at the Yuan domain realm. Sui must have done something to him. In the middle of the stage, a sharp and domineering gaze suddenly sank. A supreme dragon's aura turned into a huge wave that surged through the sky. Immediately, the entire stage fell silent. Draconis, who had his hands behind his back, finally stood up. His lifelike robe fluttered without any wind, and the aura of a supreme ruler filled the entire stage. Hidden within his domineering aura was a sharp aura that could be felt by anyone. Can you still bear it, Long family? Sui smiled. The Sacred Flame Elder had walked right into his trap and become a chess piece to test the Long family for the second time. Sui couldn't help but shake his head at this stubborn old man and feel apologetic. In the space behind him, an overwhelming snowstorm began to spread. The ice crystals beneath his feet turned into frost and rapidly condensed. Sui knew that Duanmu Xiaoman had also begun to move. Her beautiful figure in the crowd was enough to make one's heart skip a beat. Sui charged forward with Duanmu Qingtian behind. Together, they would expose the Long family's scheme and find Duanmu Qingtian's whereabouts. This was something that the two of them had a tacit understanding of. At the same time, Sui could feel an extremely sharp killing intent floating in the air. Sword Qi was awe-inspiring, and ripples that cut through space rolled over. It was ready to strike with a single strike. Elder Su. Master. Sui almost blurted out. Since the beginning of the arena, Sui had always known that Suruga's eyes had never left him. Even though the two of them had never spoken a word, Sui knew that this short figure, who was like a teacher and a father, was constantly concerned about him. Chapter 1870. The golden dragon pattern in front of the stage was accompanied by faint dragon patterns across the entire place, releasing a monstrous aura. Then, the entire space began to surge. In an instant, the bright sky began to surge, and the distant sky immediately darkened. In the dark space of heaven and earth, countless thick dark clouds flew over rapidly. The faintly discernible golden dragon radiance surged, and in an instant, thunder rumbled and lightning flashed. The strong wind in the sky whistled, and behind it, a terrifying vortex of golden light shot out. The huge dragon I was intimidating. It's the dragon god. Oh my god! That's the dragon god! Gazing at the heaven and earth phenomenon in the sky, many gazes were filled with horror. Their bodies trembled as they quickly looked in the direction of the dragon's eyes. Their gazes were filled with shock. This is the phenomenon of heaven and earth. The dragon god has been born. Such a sudden scene made everyone's gaze fluctuate, and they looked at the huge movement in the sky in astonishment. Squinting his eyes, Sui crossed his arms, and the Origin Supreme technique circulated rapidly around his body. Sui obviously knew that this was not the dragon god, but to be able to achieve this with human strength, the perfect bloodline inheritance was enough to make the Long family proud. In his mind, the golden dragon image flowed wantonly, and the supreme dragon aura rolled rapidly in his blood, spreading golden light. Sui quickly changed his hand seals, and a trace of golden light flashed in his eyes, suppressing the dragon aura in the heaven origin demon soul that was ready to move. Then, he lifted his gaze and looked at the sky with a solemn expression. At the same time, countless origin emperors and origin ancestors were dumbfounded. Looking at the phenomenon of heaven and earth that Draconis had casually created, all of them were shocked and in awe. It was hard to believe, and their eyes began to flicker with excitement like flames. Some of the weaker ones even had the thought of kneeling down and worshipping. It's too terrifying. The dragon god is alive. Looking at the center of the phenomenon, the dragon aura was in the sky, and the supreme pressure was like the collapse of heaven and earth, crushing everyone's hearts. At that moment, a huge and mysterious hand seal instantly disappeared the shocking phenomenon in the sky. While they were shocked, the experts sighed. In front of the divine might, their cultivation was not even worth mentioning. On the other hand, Suyi's back was straight. His entire body was like the hilt of a sword inserted into the ground, unstoppable. Suddenly, he stamped his foot on the ground. His long robe fluttered, and a circle of golden light suddenly enveloped his entire body. With the addition of divine light, he looked like a young god. The dragon power that had just filled his heart was completely dispelled. His eyes were burning and there was a calmness that was like an ancient well. He looked at the arrogant Long Ao and Long Tsang on the stage. Draconis stared at Sui for a long time. His deep eyes were filled with an indescribable meaning, and his feet moved slightly. Draconis said slowly, "Holy Flame, step back for now." Xinghua's face twitched upon hearing this. Never would he have thought that even the Long family would say something like this. Look, even the Long family supports Sui. Looks like the Holy Mountain has lost again and again this time. Sui. Lu Ruashi gritted her teeth. Her crescent moon eyes were like ripples in spring water as she looked at the unyielding figure in front of her. Following that, Draconis's deep voice was like a dragon's roar. A majestic soul pressure instantly rushed out, causing everyone's soul to feel a sense of submission. Sui has injured the Holy Mountain's Holy Sun in a non-tournament round. In the next round, other than accepting a formal challenge, Sui, you also have to accept a challenge from any 3 people. If you succeed, you can directly become one of the 5 Holy Sons of Heavenly Wind. Are you willing? A huge wave cut through the sky, and the sound waves were transmitted to everyone's ears over and over again. Shock and astonishment flashed through the corners of everyone's eyes. Countless burning gazes were fixed on Sui. They were all waiting to see a good show from Sui. If you don't even dare to accept this, you shouldn't have challenged the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament's rules. Draconis's eyes flickered with a golden light. A powerful aura filled the air, and his body was covered in a dazzling light. He was like an ancient dragon god, suppressing the world. Accept him. Su-yi, aren't you very powerful? Hee, let's see how Su-yi will deal with this. He dares to challenge Heavenly Wind and cause trouble right under the Dragon God's nose. Tyrant Si Santong and Yuchi Chongfeng raised their arrogant heads at the same time. A dense chill spread through the air. At the side, Shangguan Shinjua's eyes were blazing. His body was filled with battle intent, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. His body seemed to be erupting with lava, causing people to want to retreat. Everyone knew about the conflict between Shangguan Shinjua and Su-yi. Shangguan Shinjua had been injured by Su-yi miraculously, but had recovered miraculously. It was as if the heavens were helping him. If you don't agree, I'll help you. Duanmu Xiaoman's red lips parted. Her voice was cold, but her eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. She stared coldly at the dragon god. Su-yi's lips curled into a cold smile. He had tested the Long family, and now the Long family was testing him. You want to use 3 people to test my level, don't you? Alright. I agree. Su-yi transmitted his voice to Duanmu Xiaoman behind him. He said softly, if I don't even dare to agree to this, it will be difficult for me to become your man in the future. The Long family is nothing to be afraid of. Duanmu Xiaoman's body was moist. She naturally knew that after Su-yi came out, he was at odds with the Long family mainly because of Duanmu Qintian. The faint coldness in her eyes couldn't hide the sigh in her heart. Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-white robe was like a mist of light. It opened up slightly, as if the door to her heart had finally opened to Su-yi. The air was filled with a strong smell of gunpowder. Draconis's arrogant eyes didn't show any fear of this young man in front of him. He was unmoving like a mountain. He was like a 10,000-year-old mountain that had been lying there quietly, concealing his strength and biding his time. The vast soul-spirit pressure pressed down on Draconis. Behind him, Long Tsang's eyes twitched. He immediately wanted to take a step forward. Draconis's deep and vigorous voice once again spread to every corner of the plaza. He said loudly, the first round is over. Let the second round begin quickly. There isn't much time left. Qi Mofeng nodded heavily. He moved his hunched body and tried his best to open his old eyes. At the same time, he also paid his respects to Su-yi. A cold light shot out from his eyes. Qi Mofeng's withered hands were raised high above his head. He shouted loudly, and the 400 small battle stages immediately began to move in the air. Boom! The battle stages were surrounded by mysterious runes. A vast aura spread out. It was as if 400 ferocious demonic beasts were roaring out. Sand and stones rolled and dust filled the sky. When everything was ready, there was a loud boom in the surroundings. The 400 battle stages combined in pairs and freely paired up. Creak! In an instant, the Yuan Qi whistled and filled the air. Su-yi raised his eyebrows. His eyes were fixed on the Yuan Qi membrane on the opposite side. Outside the membrane, the figure was blurry. Because of the tyrannical energy brought about by the movement of the battle stages, countless experts below the battle stages felt their hearts tremble. After a moment, everything was settled. The light membrane was like a shadow left behind by ashes. It shone with a luster and constantly shrunk. The figure on the opposite side was also gradually taking shape. Chapter 1871. Da. A slender figure slowly walked into Su-yi's line of sight, and a crisp sound rang out as it landed on the thick black jade floor. Both the man and the sword broke through the thick layer of dust, and the light barrier dissipated into a rain of light. Who is it? Many of the spectators were like Su-yi, extremely concerned about his opponent. Under Draconis's request, Su-yi not only had to defeat his second opponent, he also had to accept the challenges of 3 other participants. The first person in the second round was the best test for Su-yi. The square was vast, and in an instant, the 400 stages became 200 stages. At the same time, the terrifying aura dissipated in an instant. Su-yi also wanted to know who his opponent was. When the person who walked out saw Su-yi, his body trembled slightly. Obviously, he did not expect to meet Su-yi. So it's you. Su-yi's lips curled into a cold smile. So his first opponent in the second round was none other than Yin Jianxing, who he had met in the Great Demon Mountain Range. Enemies often cross paths. After Yin Jianxing was killed by Su-yi, he barely managed to enter the top 800 of Heavenly Wind. In the second round, he met a strong opponent and finally entered the top 400. In the end, he still met Su-yi. The corners of his eyes twitched. None of the people present knew Su-yi's terror better than he did. Thinking back to how he was tortured by Su-yi in the Great Demon Mountain Range, he couldn't help but widen his eyes and break out in cold sweat. Su-yi, can you let me go? Yin Jianxing suppressed the anger in his heart. His pale face was empty, as if he was talking to the devil. Let you go? We're going to have a serious fight. Yin Jianxing's words put Su-yi in a difficult position. He did not want the prestige he had just established to be destroyed by Yin Jianxing. Woo-woo! The muffled sound of the horn seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. Casually listening to it, there was actually a kind of endless, desolate, and barbaric sound. The more one heard it, the more their souls would begin to throb. There was a faint feeling of fear and trepidation. No, no, no. I'm not fighting. The sound of the Yin sword shook its head like a rattled drum, and the countless experts below the stage looked at it with doubtful gazes, making it feel as if there was a thorn in its back. After dying in the Great Demon Mountain Range, he could still be resurrected and offset so much damage, but he was still instantly turned into slag by Su-yi. Probing Su-yi's cultivation with his soul, the Yin sword sound suddenly felt like a mayfly entering the vast ocean, instantly disappearing without a trace. A vast aura enveloped him, and even his soul couldn't help but tremble. In the next second, he had the urge to crawl on the ground. Slowly wiping away the large beads of sweat on his forehead, the sound of the Yin sword began to roll in his throat, his ears listening to Qi Mofeng's voice that was like a wild lion's. His whole body quivered as he looked back at the sex experts who had high expectations for him. The Yin sword sound relied on the long sword in his hand to support his limp body. Right now, just the soul pressure from Su-yi was enough to crush the last bit of thought in his heart, not to mention circulating his yuan qi and attacking. His gaze landed on Su-yi, and the Yin sword sound slowly raised his right hand, trembling as he said, "I forfeit." Hua. The raging 200 stages suddenly quieted down, leaving only the powerful sounds of yuan qi explosions from a few focused cultivators. Countless shocked gazes were immediately attracted by Su-yi's stage. The only one who didn't feel surprised was the Gemini sex Huna. Standing in the crowd, his face was haggard due to his injuries, but he completely agreed with the decision of the Yin sword sound. What are you doing? The sword sound. The experts of the Immortal Sword sect shouted with all their might, their eyeballs almost falling to the ground. Although they had been killed in the first round, they had barely managed to enter. The Immortal Sword sect had placed all their hopes on the Yin sword sound, but who would have thought that they would end up with such a result? Wasn't he and Huna arguing with Su-yi when they were queuing? He actually admitted defeat. Admitting defeat in the middle of the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament, it's really too embarrassing. I don't know what's going on with Su-yi. Why is he so lucky? He found a top-tier expert and even forfeited. The crowd below was filled with curses and doubts. Yin Sword Sound's face was burning hot, and his mind was filled with the scene of Su-yi instantly killing 3 people and directly suppressing Yi Yuhan. Going against an aristocratic family head-on, without the slightest bit of fear towards the Long family, such a youth was truly powerful, and definitely not an ordinary person. Are you sure? Qi Mofeng's eyes flashed with doubt as he asked loudly. Facing me, You don't even have the courage to exchange 2 moves with me? Su Yi's eyes were filled with coldness, like a giant ice blade in the middle of the night, continuously slicing Sword Sound's body. The aura around him had unknowingly dissipated, and the corners of his eyes twitched. Sword Sound's hoarse voice resounded throughout the entire arena, and he gritted his teeth. That's right, my immortal sword sex, Sword Sound forfeits. A wave of lamenting voices rose and fell, crashing onto Su Yi's stage like a tidal wave. Sword Sound's head drooped, and his gaze swept past Su Yi. Without saying anything, he laughed miserably and flew towards the stage. Huna had long been waiting by the side of the stage, and he patted Sword Sound's shoulder heavily, expressing his understanding. In the distance, Jianxing didn't dare to look at the experts of his sect. Sighs and sighs filled his ears. Pushing the crowd aside, the yuan qi beneath his feet rose, turning into a ball of silver sword qi that floated into the distance. Sword Sound! Huna and the experts from the Immortal Sword sect exclaimed at the same time. To a martial artist, such a great opportunity had ended with him forfeiting. This was simply a humiliation that would be remembered even in death. Boom, boom, boom. Another few figures broke through the air, and the spectating experts retracted their gazes, returning it to Su Yi. Everyone's expression became somewhat strange. Just how strong was Su Yi? How could he make the number 1 expert of the Immortal Sword sect forfeit? Perhaps only Huna and Sword Sound would understand that no one should offend Su Yi. It's not that I don't want to fight, but I don't have the chance. Su Yi shook his head, and sat on the ground on the stage, the aura around him vast and boundless. Majestic waves of energy circled back and forth, and a milky white divine light circulated rapidly. Su Yi, who was forming hand seals, openly began to regulate his breathing on the stage, not caring about anyone else at all. Damn it, he's too arrogant. And he even said such infuriating words. Is there anyone who wants to teach him a lesson? I really can't take it anymore. Just how strong is this Su Yi? Why can't I see through him? An origin ancestor expert's gaze wavered. The 200 stages shook, and violent spatial fluctuations broke through the sky, turning into countless colorful yuan qi ribbons that illuminated the heavens. On one of the battle platforms, a young man was quietly cultivating and gradually entered a state of concentration. Chapter 1872. Sect Master, how should we deal with this? Qi Lufeng stood beside Qi Xingbao, his eyes drifting. He consciously looked past Su Yi and at the Long family members who were like kings. As their gazes overlapped, Qi Meifeng swiftly lowered his gaze. The boundless soul pressure made even him, a grand elder, feel ashamed of his own inferiority. The current Long family had already reached such a terrifying stage. Even so, Su Yi was so insolent that Long Xing actually allowed him to do as he pleased. Even if Qi Lufeng racked his brains, he still wouldn't have thought of this. Not to mention that Su Yi was the new sect master of the demon-subduing sect. Qi Xingbao didn't have time to tell Qi Lufeng, who was also a grand elder. He only heard Qi Dongjue's deep voice. Just let him be. He is much stronger than you think. Qi Dongjue's strength was at least in the top 3 in the demon-subduing sect. Other than being lustful, he had never lost to anyone in terms of martial arts. Now that Qi Dongjue had such a high evaluation of Su Yi, Qi Lufeng couldn't help but feel more curious about this young man. On the stage, faint golden patterns scattered out from Long Tsang's eyes. They were like divine eyes as he stared at Su Yi, who had already entered a deep level of cultivation. Father, let me fight next. This brat is too domineering. If we don't kill him, he will think that our Long family can't suppress heavenly wind. His words were cold. Previously, when Su Yi came out, the two of them had a short confrontation. Su Yi's image had left a deep impression in Long Tsang's heart. This handsome young man with a hint of evilness at the corner of his eyebrows made the arrogant Long Tsang feel oppressed by an invisible pressure. Long Tsang wanted to vent his anger and trample Su-yi under his feet. He wanted to tell everyone that he was the ruler of this continent. He was the supreme youth. Draconis narrowed his eyes. The battle to advance from 400 to 200 was like a child's play in his eyes. He hasn't revealed anything yet. With such an opponent, you can't hold it in? Long Tsang's body moved. His eyebrows were like mountains. Countless thoughts were hidden in his frown as he thought about it carefully. Su-yi's realm was definitely higher than the second level of the Origin Emperor realm. However, Long Tsang could tell that Su-yi was at the Origin Ancestor realm with a single glance. However, this young man's mysterious aura always made him lose his sense of propriety. His flustered heart gradually calmed down. Long Tsang's soul pressure gradually spread out. He felt the vast and boundless aura around Su-yi. It was as if he was a deity from the heavens, crossing the river of time. Su-yi's body was releasing a long and powerful aura. Incomparable natural powers transformed into tiny light beams, which were hard to see with naked eyes, and poured into Su-yi's body. His soul pressure was like a pushing hand. Once he had enough strength, he would push the outside world away. Bang! When the Golden Dragon's aura came into contact with Su-yi's body, the Golden Dragon blood essence within Su-yi's body began to boil like lava. Under the cover of the Origin Supreme technique, bursts of golden light instantly spread out. Buzz! Buzz! Looking from afar, Draconis bent his finger slightly. With a light tap, it transformed into a golden dragon silk and whizzed out. It cut off the vital energy connection between Su-yi and Long Tsang. At the same time, Long Tsang's expression changed. An abnormally terrifying energy fluctuation surged, causing Long Tsang's breathing to quicken. The secrets on his body are far greater than you can imagine, Draconis said in a deep voice. This sentence shocked Duguqing, Yan Mietian, Yi and Yun Zhongli. The 5 human sovereigns narrowed their eyes and looked at Su-yi at the same time. They all wanted to get something out of Su-yi. Lord of Heaven! Lan Balian took a step forward and lowered her head slightly. Yi naturally knew what Lan Balian wanted to say. Su-yi had formed an alliance with Sky Sea City. It was obvious that the Long family had their eyes on Su-yi. Once the Long family had their eyes on him, the Dugu family, the Yun family, and Yan Mietian would all take action. Shaking his head slightly, the Lord of Heaven walked forward. The aura in front of him surged like a violent wave and rushed toward Su-yi. Boom! Similarly, a strong force bounced back. Yi-yi's beautiful eyebrows suddenly twitched, and a trace of excitement flashed in her eyes. This kid is a little interesting. On the other side, the Lord, Duanmu Shaoman, Bahai Long Eagle, and Shangguan Juahu were not only concerned about the situation of their own disciples. At the same time, they also looked at Su-yi, who was cultivating. How could someone who was targeted by the 5 aristocratic families be a gigolo who entered by luck? Absolutely impossible. Bahai Long Eagle took a deep breath and whispered to the people around him. Tell Santong to only ask for proper treatment. He must not be in the limelight. The lords of the upper-level forces naturally knew their son's character. They were arrogant, wild, and aloof. They never took ordinary people seriously. Now, there was someone who was even more arrogant than them. They had to compete to know. Bam! Some of the martial artists had already finished their battles. They jumped down from the fighting ring excitedly. Looking at Su-yi, who was cultivating calmly, they were even more furious. Hey! That kid, get down from the ring. Is there any justice in this world? Do you think you are really strong just because Yin Jianxing surrendered? Elder Fu Yao, when can we challenge this arrogant kid? Some of the men with strong blood chi roared. They had just gone through a tough battle and successfully entered the top 200. The battle intent in their hearts expanded endlessly, spreading to the surroundings and engulfing the sky. At this moment Sui closed his eyes. He could hear the mountain-like provocation outside. However, his divine sense had already entered the deepest level. The energy in his body was rapidly compressed, and the strong and crazy aura was all poured into the great void spirit ocean. Sui was using all his strength to use the great void spirit ocean to activate the fourth profound gate. His whole body was glowing under the nourishment of the spiritual chi. It glowed with a mysterious light pattern, like a piece of jade. It was extremely beautiful. Huff! Don't worry, take it slow. The fourth profound gate is not that easy to open. Su Yi's cultivation was completely dependent on the demonic cores and spiritual liquid. It was naturally difficult for him to open the fourth profound gate while breaking through his foundation. Huff! His breathing became heavier and heavier. Large beads of sweat dripped down from Su Yi's body. Forget it, this is it for now. I'll find a chance to open it again. He slowly opened his eyes and a strong light shot out. A low sound of collision could be heard, and the shattered space in front of him rippled like waves. Bang bang! He stood up and flipped his body lightly. His feet heavily slammed into the ground, immediately creating a huge ditch. It was as if a monstrous beast had crushed the ground with its claws. It was a ghastly sight. Su Yi stretched his neck, and a trace of ruthlessness appeared in his lazy eyes. What, are you done fighting? Hurry up and send a few people to challenge me. Boom! Countless curses could be heard. They had just finished a round of battles, and everyone's spiritual chi was extremely chaotic. Hearing this sentence, they were angered to the point of spitting out blood. Arrogant brat! How dare you be so rude? An expert from a first-rate sect was furious. He pointed at Su Yi and roared. Chapter 1873. You've been cultivating for so long, but our disciples are still fighting. Are you trying to pick up the spoils? Su Yi's feet moved slightly, his eyes instantly shooting out a bit of sharpness, his voice like a sudden clap of thunder, spreading through the air. You old man, am I the one who didn't want to fight? Why are you blaming me when others admit defeat? The experts who were clamoring just now shut their mouth. That was the truth. No one was blind. But the disciples who had just entered the top 200 didn't have the guts to challenge Su Yi, even among the first-rate powerhouses. Do you want to gang up on me? That's fine too. I'll keep you company. Su Yi shrugged his shoulders. The sunlight shone on Su Yi's chiseled face, making him look both resolute and wild. At this point, Su Yi wouldn't give anyone the chance to mock him. Those who called him a gigolo who relied on luck had to step aside. All the first-rate forces, I'll be waiting here. If you want to challenge me, feel free to do so. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, and a chilling intent spread in the hearts of every expert and disciple. An overwhelming killing intent accompanied by a spiritual pressure caused everyone's hearts to beat rapidly. Su Yi enjoyed seeing the helpless looks on these people's faces. They knew that he was arrogant, but they couldn't do anything about it. Duanmu Xiaoman's pretty face twitched slightly. This was the first time she saw Su Yi like this kind of elegant demeanor. The young man who used to ride a crane and chase after the wind seemed to have returned. The arrogant young man who looked down on the world was right in front of her. Qing Tian. Duanmu Xiaoman pursed her lips. She knew that Su Yi's arrogance was partly to expose the Long family. If Qing Tian's death was caused by the Long family, they would definitely do something about it. Arrogant! Long Tsang roared. His voice was like that of a wild beast that had not escaped from its cage. He seems to be alone. Dugucheng rubbed his chin and tilted his head to look at the mysterious young man. Endless memories flashed in his eyes. Yan Mietian's figure instantly disappeared as he reappeared beside Dugucheng. He asked in a low voice, "You think so too?" Heavily patting Dugucheng's shoulder, Yenmia Tian Tiger's eyes lit up with flames as he said in a deep voice, alike, absolutely alike. Even that hateful appearance and impressive talent are the same. Alright, stop talking. Look over there. Draconis's stature was imposing, his eyes were like shooting stars, and his two curved eyebrows looked like they were painted. His chest was very broad, and his golden robe was like a divine golden dragon descending from the clouds, extremely mighty. However, on his calm face, it was impossible to tell what he thought of Su Yi from his deep eyes. Even Yun Zhongli, who was always lazy, had a serious look on his face. When he heard Su Wan-er's movements behind him, Yun Zhongli raised his hand. A cloud-like energy beam directly blocked Su Wan-er's movements. She lowered her voice and said angrily, "If you move again, I'll kill this brat right now." "Don't." Su Wan-er spoke to Yun Zhongli as if she was talking to a stranger. Her eyes were filled with hesitation and helplessness, and she even looked delicate and pitiful. In front of Yun Zhongli, Origin Emperors were like little chicks with their wings tied. Their strength was too weak. "Do you want to repeat what happened to your sister?" Yun Zhongli's eyes flashed with a cold light. In the next second, Su Wan-er's mouth was also bound by the light silk, and she could only make muffled sounds. On the square, endless sounds of killing reverberated back and forth. Su Yi's gaze went back and forth among the first-rate forces. "By the way, I'm from the Bawang sect in the Chaos region. I heard that you look down on the Chaos region." His gaze was like lightning, instantly striking the hearts of countless experts. The truth made every expert feel a little embarrassed. In their eyes, the Chaos region was a place where a group of barbarians and wild beasts gathered. It was chaotic and lawless. It could even be said that it was an uncivilized place. Naturally, they had a great prejudice against this place. Su Yi sneered. What he said next made all the experts gasp and even more furious. "But it doesn't matter. I can't even defeat those from the Chaos region. If you can't defeat them, you can join us. The Bawang sect welcomes you." Pacing back and forth, Su Yi's arrogant words were so funny in front of Bai Ling, Shi Susu, and the others because they knew that Su Yi must have a plan. For someone like him who could always create miracles, no matter how shocking his actions were, they wouldn't be surprised. Su Yi made a difficult gesture and sighed. However, the Bawang sect doesn't want disciples who admit defeat. They aren't domineering at all. As soon as he finished speaking, he shook his head. The faces of all the first-rate forces turned red. Unparalleled anger surged through heaven and earth, and their auras surged. If it weren't for the fact that sect masters couldn't participate in the battle, these people would have eaten Su Yi alive. The angrier they are, the faster the Bawang sect's reputation will spread throughout the world. Su Yi sneered in his heart. Suddenly, a golden light filled the air and flashed across the corner of his eyes like a streak of rainbow. A pair of jade-like hands with white skin reflected a trace of rosy glow. There was a seductive expression between her brows. Her eyes were twinkling like stars. Under the delicate bridge of her nose, her red lips were like fire. Just one look at them would cause an inexplicable evil fire and make people swallow their saliva. Her slender fingers swayed in front of her chest, revealing all kinds of charm. Her every frown and smile was enough to shake people's hearts. She wore a light yellow short skirt. The opening of the skirt was a little low, and there was a hibiscus pattern hanging on it, which highlighted her full figure. 2 strands of hair by her cheeks swayed gently in the wind, adding to her seductiveness. A name flashed across Su Yi's mind instantly. Chong Mengli. This was the 6th saintess from the sacred mountain. She was about 25 or 26 years old, and her bright red lips were slightly curved. Compared to Lu Ruashi's elegance and purity, Chong Mengli had a trace of mature charm that made people unable to resist. Countless cultivators wanted to linger on her body and wander around the 2 snowy peaks in front of her. "What's wrong? Am I not pretty?" Chang Mingli asked Su Yi in a soft and gentle voice. As she walked, she strode towards Su Yi's direction with her fleshless legs. Her waist and buttocks were extremely alluring. As she walked up and down, it was as if she was a pink peach that invaded the hormones of his ambition. Countless envious gazes were cast on Su Yi. Even if he lost this round, it was definitely not a waste to be able to do something with such a charming beauty. However, Chang Mingli just had to meet Su Yi, who had lived 2 lives. Putting aside the fact that his state of mind had surpassed the rest of the world, Chang Mingli was the most beautiful woman in the world. Who could compare to the 9 spirit lynxes Ling Miaoyin? Even he managed to resist the charm that had transcended countless times. In terms of conquering desire, what could be more fulfilling than pouncing on Duanmu Xiaoman? Chapter 1874. When he thought of this, Su Yi's heart did not waver at all. Instead, he felt that this girl was a little boring. If the crowd knew that Su Yi actually had such thoughts, their hatred for Su Yi would probably increase exponentially. Why? Are you dumbfounded? Chang Mingli tilted her head. Her eyes seemed to contain some hazy teasing intent. Do you think you're very good-looking? Su Yi directly retorted without any mercy. Obviously, Chang Mingli did not expect Su Yi to have such a reaction. She had absolute confidence in her figure and appearance. She took 2 steps back. Her exquisite figure was like the most beautiful picture scroll flowing in front of Su Yi. An intoxicating gentleness immediately caused countless cultivators below the stage to be infatuated and exclaim in admiration. I think I'm much prettier than Lu Ruoxi. What do you think? After saying that, Chang Mingli glanced at Lu Ruoxi below the stage. The endless ridicule and arrogance in her eyes seemed to indicate that she was the future saint of the world's sacred mountain. The 9th saintess, who was as noble as a snow lotus in the eyes of others, was simply worthless. Su Yi. Lu Ruoxi's jade-like body faced the wind. Her fragrant hands clenched slightly. If they were to fight fair and square, Lu Ruoxi would not be afraid at all. However, Chang Mingli's attack inexplicably made her feel sour in her heart. Tilting his head, his exquisite eyes fixed on Duanmu Xiaoman's body. Her temperament was graceful, as light as a cloud. Duanmu Xiaoman seemed to be standing on top of a high mountain. No one could reach out to touch her. However, Lu Ruoxi knew that she only had eyes for Su Yi. She did not feel the slightest bit of competition for Duanmu Xiaoman's attention. Palace Master Duanmu also likes Su Yi, but why don't I feel that sour? Lu Ruoxi smiled bitterly. Who was she worried about? Once Heavenly Wind ended, their fates would be completely sealed. Whichever Heavenly Wind ranked higher would have to shoulder the Holy Mountain's mission, find the Heavenly Wind Divine Sword, and inherit the Holy Mountain's legacy. He could only wholeheartedly assist the new Saint Emperor. He could not help but sense that the Xiahong House and Yuchi Changfeng had already ended. He was immediately filled with loneliness and sorrow. On the battle platform, the 2 people who seemed to be quite compatible with each other were constantly attracting the attention of the crowd. One was elegant, while the other was charming and affectionate. Su Yi shook his head and said loudly, First, in terms of appearance, you are no match for my master, the imperial goddess Duanmu Xiaoman. Smacking his lips and narrowing his eyes, Su Yi sized up Chang Mingli from head to toe. He propped his chin on his hand and said solemnly, In terms of temperament, you're far inferior to my Lu Ruoxi. The first sentence had already caused the expression in Chang Mingli's eyes to change rapidly. After the second sentence, Chang Mingli's eyes were filled with anger and her beautiful face turned cold. The biggest taboo for a woman was to be called inferior by others. Especially this kind of woman who thought that she was too good to have any friends. This was all the more reason for him to recognize reality. Su Yi stopped Chang Mingli from charging forward and blocked her with his palm. He said loudly, Third, at your age, you're already going to have wrinkles. You're even less comparable to my wife, Lu Ruashi. 3 sentences, each more ruthless than the last. Everyone knew the consequences of angering a woman. Moreover, she was the saintess of the Saint Mountain. While countless people were admiring Su Yi's courage, they also hated Su Yi. He actually dared to verbally attack such a beautiful woman. The anger in Chang Mingli's eyes had already reached its peak. Her knuckles turned purple and crackling sounds shocked the crowd. I originally wanted you to join the Saint Mountain, but I've changed my mind now. Go to hell. All of you, go to hell. Su Yi's lips curled into a cold smile. He quickly formed hand seals with both hands and a surging force swept across the field. A ball of blazing wind and fire rapidly compressed the space in front of him. Chang Mingli, who was through the space, seemed to have become a little distorted. Su Yi added one last sentence. I have one more sentence for you. Don't think that you're a treasure. In my eyes, you're just a ball of excrement. Damn! How dare he say that? That's the saintess of the Saint Mountain. She's trying to be nice to you, but you're insulting her so directly? Does he have such a deep grudge with the Saint Mountain? Su Yi's last sentence completely stunned everyone. While they stared at Su Yi, they also paid attention to the Lord's expression. The Lord's expression was cold, and there seemed to be a hint of helplessness in his eyes. On the other hand, Xing Huo was furious. His white hair was fluttering in the wind, and he was stopped by a few people. As the Grand Supreme Elder, although he had long put his focus back on cultivation, he still had a lot of feelings for these saints and saintesses since they were young. Insulting the future of the Saint Mountain was equivalent to insulting the Saint Mountain. Beating up the saints and saintesses was equivalent to trampling the Saint Mountain. It was no different from trampling on Su Yi's mountain gate. The grudge between him and the Saint Mountain is too deep. The Lord shook his head. He knew that other than Lu Ruashi, no one else would be able to solve this grudge. In the crowd, a short figure kept nodding. It was Suruga, whom Su Yi admired. Great, this is the person that I, Suruga, have chosen. Sidu Luyan shook her head and whispered, in the Xinjian gate, Su Yi is too arrogant, and Mu Yao is too arrogant. However, both of them are very talented. Xinjian Gate had already achieved the best result in the past thousands of years. Lu Yunfeng had been defeated, and Mu Yao had successfully entered the top 200. Although Yunlingfeng, whom she did not approve of, had also entered the top 200, Situ Luyun was not happy at all. Situ Luyun had mixed feelings as she looked at the arrogant and elegant Su Yi on the fighting ring. If she had not been pressured by her sect to wait for Su Yi's return, the current Xinjian Gate would be different. Hidden behind Situ Luyun's back, a pair of ghostly dark eyes stared fixedly at Su Yi. Su Yi, I will make you beg for mercy in front of everyone. Yunlingfeng was as cold as a knife. His aura was gloomy and terrifying. His complexion had turned from white to black. Bang! On the fighting ring, Chang Mingli was so angry that she was about to bleed. The Holy King protective aura surrounded her, and a long sword was held high in the sky. A shadow condensed behind her, and the image of the Holy King shot out. You are only at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm. Do you really think that I am interested in you? Go and apologize to Yu Hen. Chang Mingli yelled. In a short moment, the image of the Holy King pushed the space in front of it away. In an instant, the energy of heaven and earth gathered, and the wind and clouds surged. A majestic golden light pierced through the space and flashed. The moment the image of the Holy King pounced, the soul pressure collapsed from the sky like a tidal wave. Instantly, the surrounding space cracked and spread rapidly. Go to hell. The domineering golden light covered the sky, and the surrounding space collapsed inch by inch. Suddenly, the image of the Holy King pounced down. Chapter 1875. The golden sword tip in his eyes was getting smaller and smaller as a powerful chilling intent rushed over. Su Yi's heart skipped a beat. He had never expected the beautiful Changmengli to be so chilling when she used her martial skill. The intense and bone-piercing killing intent whizzed through the air. The golden palm print swept across the sky and overturned the black slate on the ground. Countless spatial cracks filled the air. PFFF. At the same time, Su Yi sneered. His body shook as the fiery red attribute of Yuan Qi emerged from his feet and floated into the air like a ray of light. The moment he lowered his head, his body moved to the side. The huge palm print brushed past Su Yi's shoulder. If it was half an inch lower, Su Yi's shoulder would have been shredded into meat paste by the golden palm print. Bang! Wherever the palm print passed, the wind swept away the clouds. The sound of the air being compressed reverberated in the ears. Immediately after, the sound of the palm print hitting the slate caused the entire battle stage to tremble. Resplendent golden rays burst out and shattered the surrounding space inch by inch. The incomparably hard slate was instantly smashed into powder. The sect masters and experts below were stunned. The Saint Monarch Qi of the Saint Mountain was indeed worthy of its reputation. Changmengli's strength at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm was actually able to shatter the black slate that had been reinforced by the demon-subduing sect. This level of strength was comparable to a fourth level of the Origin Emperor realm. Looks like this little saintess is really angry. Every move she made was meant to beat Su Yi to death. Even so, Su Yi is still so calm. Doesn't that make him even more powerful? This kid Su Yi is unfathomable. I really don't know how far he can go. Everyone's eyes were solemn. The Origin Ancestor and Origin Domain experts' eyes were trembling as they couldn't hide their complicated thoughts. So you're here to avenge Yi Yuhan. You're slightly stronger than him. Su Yi sneered. Su Yi's Yuan Qi erupted as the mighty Origin Supreme technique was activated. His body was covered in mysterious rays of light, making him look extraordinarily valiant. Shut up. Upon hearing Su Yi's evaluation of Yi Yuhan, Changmengli, who was holding a long sword and whose cheeks were already red with anger, turned to look at Yi Yuhan. Immediately, a thick murderous intent flashed across the corners of her brows. The traceless sword brought about a tearing sensation as it cut through the air. It was like a soul-stirring sound coming from afar. The sword light condensed slightly, and the tiny sword flowers that danced out turned into countless light shadows in front of him. You thief! You killed a disciple of the Holy Mountain and humiliated a chosen of the Holy Mountain. Do you really think no one will avenge you? Today, I shall enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and destroy you. Changmengli cried out, and the sword beam in her hand became even sharper and more vivid. So, above the void, Changmengli disappeared once again, turning into a golden stream of light that carried a vast soul fluctuation. Instantly, the energy fluctuations in the entire space began to expand. In front of Su Yi's eyes, there seemed to be a sky full of gods and Buddhas. Heavenly music reverberated in the air, as if it came from an ancient paradise, solemn and dignified. Suddenly, a sharp sword light shot out from the golden light. The sword light was magnified infinitely in his eyes. Following the appearance of the sword light, invisible sword chi spread out from his body like a wave of air. The golden light of the sword shadow attacked the heavens and the earth. Go to hell. Changmengli was only 10 inches away from Su Yi, her moon-like eyes turning blood-red. Chi La. The sword light that carried a gloomy killing intent seemed to have passed through a blank space. Changmengli directly passed through Su Yi's body. After her body dived forward for a distance, she raised her head in disbelief. She saw 4 similarly corporeal Su Yi standing around her with their hands behind their back. A bone-piercing cold wind blew through the space, leaving no trace of her hair behind. Changmengli suddenly felt a chill in her heart. Her boiling blood seemed to have frozen in an instant. Just like her, the hearts of the spectators present flashed with a tempestuous wave of shock. Is that a soul doppelganger? Bahai Long Eagle narrowed his eyes. His face was full of shock, as if he had seen a ghost. Shangguan Juahu's eyes were even more solemn. He could not stop his heart from trembling. Where did this kid come from? Shocking everyone with one move, Su Yi proudly raised his head high, a chilling light filled his eyes. In an instant the aura around him seemed to have changed into another person. Killing intent leaked out from Huang Xiaolong's body. Blazing fire attribute essence energy was like the god of fire descending to the heavens, bringing with it endless fury as if he wanted to burn down the entire world. Before the aristocratic families, Su Yi knew that it was unwise to expose the Golden Dragon's ability too early. Therefore, after using the Peerless Dragon Flash, it was best to get rid of Chongmengli in the shortest time possible. In terms of hatred, has your holy mountain not done enough dirty things? Su Yi bellowed. His voice shook the sky, like an ancient demonic beast howling at the moon. The mountains and forests shook, as if the demonic beasts of the great demonic mountain range were responding. In an instant, the continuous roars of demonic beasts reverberated through the mountains and rivers, shattering the blue dome of heaven. Looking from afar, Su Yi was like the lord of demonic beasts. At his command, all the demonic beasts knelt down. With a raise of his hand, he slaughtered his way to the 9 heavens and earth. With a bend of his hand, he annihilated the 10 directions continent. Pft! After being hit by Su Yi's white flood dragon deity's sound wave, Chongmengli's soul trembled, and her delicate body slid back a distance in the air. Her eyes were filled with shock as she looked at the 4 Su Yis with unparalleled fear and panic. The sound wave from earlier was still reverberating, and a murderous aura filled the air. The surrounding shock waves were filled with Su Yi's pressure that came from the depths of his soul. Her legs were already starting to turn to jelly, and Su Yi's eyes shone brightly. In an instant, Su Yi's figure disappeared from the spot like a ghost. Chongmengli was completely shaken. With a thought, the long sword in her hand danced rapidly, forming a resplendent curtain wall. Too late. At the same time, 4 powerful kicks landed on Chongmengli's abdomen, hands, and back respectively. Fresh blood spurted out like a spray. Crack! The Holy Ruler protective chi shattered under Su Yi's merciless attack. Chongmengli was completely enveloped by the boundless soul power. The space that was on the verge of collapse was in a state of chaos. What shocked everyone was that Su Yi instantly merged into one and quietly landed on the battle stage. He walked from the center to the edge of the battle stage with a gloomy and indifferent gaze. The wind blew a strand of black hair in front of his forehead. His green robe that wasn't stained with blood was fluttering rapidly. It was domineering. Bang! Chongmengli, who was like a butterfly with broken wings that fell to the mortal world, landed heavily on the black stone slab. Countless spiderweb-like cracks spread out, which was a ghastly sight. When facing someone from the sacred mountain, Su Yi would never hold back. When facing such a venomous woman, Su Yi wouldn't hold back either. She was comparable to a 4th-level origin emperor, and Su Yi would only use his fastest and strongest move to kill her in one strike. Everyone was silent. Everyone who was staring at Su Yi's battle stage was shocked. Su Yi actually beat Chongmengli to such a state. At this stage, the spectators knew that Su Yi didn't rely on luck to reach this stage, but absolute strength. Sacred Mountain's Chongmengli has failed her challenge. Su Yi wins. Qi Mofeng's perfect yell made everyone swallow their saliva. They were incomparably shocked. Everyone was so shocked that their mouths were agape. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Su Yi's strength was actually so terrifying. Chapter 1876. Everyone's gaze was fixed on Su Yi as their pores opened up. Although many of them believed that their cultivation bases were higher than Su Yi's, Su Yi's aura was cold and awe-inspiring. The dense soul power emanating from his body made them feel cold and lonely. This brat is too strong. The eyes of the martial artists from the first-rate forces were filled with radiance. Su Yi, who was at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm, had definitely given them the greatest deterrence. Behind him, Chang Mengli had already fainted. The surroundings were bursting with fragments of light rain formed by the Saint King Qi, which were as dazzling as the stars. His mouth was dripping with blood as the huge blood rain splattered onto the ground. The surroundings were silent. The silence was abnormally terrifying. Everyone found it hard to describe with words. Their jaws were hanging open and they didn't dare to retract them. Who's next? Get up here. Su Yi's eyes flashed with a chilling intent as he swept his gaze across everyone's face. Everyone knew that this was the real Su Yi. He was ruthless and could destroy the heavens and earth. He didn't show any mercy when he attacked. Su Yi, who had shocked the world since the beginning of the assessment, was already so terrifying in his means and strength. When he asked earlier, none of the martial artists from the first-rate forces dared to answer. Now that Su Yi asked, they didn't even dare to speak. Everyone looked at each other, facing Su Yi's extremely indifferent voice, which was like a ferocious tiger. The first-rate martial artists who had already finished their battles gulped as their pupils began to shrink. Even the Saintess was beaten up by him. Let's not participate. So he's not a gigolo. His talent is comparable to the disciples of the aristocratic families. Oh my God, how many people here can defeat Su Yi? The people from Jutian Palace, Bawang Sect, and Xinjian Gate were all excited. They had already known about Su Yi's prowess in the central region. And now, after today, Su Yi's name would definitely spread throughout the entire Sky Barbarian continent. The King of Heaven's chosen, Su Yi would definitely leave a deep impression in everyone's heart. Looking at Su Yi's chiseled side profile, his dark and deep eyes rippled, and his slightly deep voice sounded again. Is there no one else? Is there no one in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean that can fight me? Su Yi sneered. His cold eyes swept across the cultivators who had mocked him before. Suddenly, each and every one of them shivered, not daring to breathe loudly. Their bodies twisted as they constantly retreated. Damn it, this brat is too arrogant. Yuchi Changfeng cursed in a low voice. However, when he thought of the fact that the last round of 200 to 100 had not yet begun, Yuchi Changfeng was shocked. At this time, if he were to compete with Su Yi, wouldn't the gains not make up for the losses? So, he simply stopped talking and turned his head with a cold snort. At the same time, Tyrant C3 Strokes had already passed the top 200 and returned to the camp. He crossed his arms and his eyes were gloomy. His heart was full of resentment, but there was nothing he could do. Who on earth is this Su Yi? He said he came from the Chaos Realm. How could he be related to the Xinjian Gate? It is said that he is the apprentice of Suruga. Originally, the Xinjian Gate placed all their hopes on Su Yi. It seems that something unexpected happened, and Su Yi left the Xinjian Gate. What? He is the apprentice of that guy? Damn it. No wonder. The sword Yama was also amazing in the past. The apprentice of the crazy person is really arrogant. No, he hasn't been apprenticed yet. I also heard that Su Yi was picked up by Suruga. Everyone nodded silently, and pairs of curious and fearful eyes stared at Su Yi and the sex related to Su Yi. On the fighting ring, no one responded for a long time, and the atmosphere suddenly became cold. A cold light flashed in his deep eyes, and then a majestic soul pressure slowly converged around him. It was like a divine ring of the sun, and the horrible power suddenly soared. Every martial artist was afraid that they would be pointed out by Su Yi. In the beginning, everyone wanted to crush Su Yi, but now no one wanted to meet Su Yi. It had only been half a day. Su Yi frowned. Was it because he was too fierce that no one dared to come up? Sui raised his eyes and saw the small figure in the crowd that he could not get rid of. At this time, Suruga's eyes were also shining, and the long-lost spirit in his old eyes appeared as if he was saying, "Look, that is my apprentice Sui. I am Suruga's apprentice." In his mind, Suruga's teachings and the numerous times he stepped forward bravely floated like a lantern. His nose gradually turned sour. Suddenly, a gunshot resounded in the air. The spear was like a dragon, and the dazzling light that covered the sky was captivating. When everyone was dazzled, a tall figure rushed onto the stage. Sui didn't even lift his eyelids. The fire attribute energy rushed out from his hands, and a red light ball appeared in each of his hands and blasted towards the challenger. The two rays of light quickly transformed into a torrential waterfall, wrapping around the person's silver spear. They had not even met face to face, and they had not even spoken clearly. The second challenger floated to the bottom like a fallen leaf, and everyone's eyes turned solemn. Sky Dragon Continent, Spear God Island, Kong Yunfei, Third-level Origin Emperor Realm. He is already the top figure in the first-rate forces, but he is still useless. Su Yi's strength surprised everyone. The competition to advance from 400 to 200 had basically ended, and everyone's attention was back on Su Yi. Seeing Su Yi walking forward slowly, Situ Luyun, Gong Qi, and Sakura Asaka at the Xinjian gate held their breaths, and their eyes were wide open. Sui! Mu Yao arched her eyebrows slightly. Seeing that the man from back then had grown to where he was today, all the pride and self-esteem in Mu Yao's heart crumbled at this moment. Su Yi's gentle expression was reflected on her unyielding face. As she watched Su Yi walk closer, her heart clenched. She licked her dry lips and was rather agitated. Above the aristocratic families, a few of the aristocratic families were also very curious. This kid's strength is a little strange. I guess he is about the same as Umo. Su Chun, are you confident? Yan Mietian frowned, but his eyes were filled with endless admiration for Su Yi. Su Chun raised his eyebrows slightly, and the aura around his body gradually blazed as he spoke in a low voice. He is a man that I have admired for my entire life. In just 2 short years, from the Sacred Martial Assembly to the Tianfeng ranking tournament, Su Yi's height had already reached such a level. It was really hard to imagine. Su Chen nodded continuously with an excited expression, as if he had returned to the youth back then. How heroic was that? Everyone's eyes were trembling. Su Yi said to the crowd, I want to call out the third challenger. Countless eyes followed Su Yi's gaze to the Xinjian gate. Situ Liuyun's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately spoke with some fear. Su Yi, what are you going to do? Su Yi stood with his hands behind his back, with a smile on his face. His robe and hair fluttered, and his eyes were filled with coldness. Thinking of the incident in the Divine Sword Valley, Su Yi had always been brooding in his heart, and his anger erupted like a volcano. Suddenly, a bloody light flashed in his eyes as he roared. Yunling Feng, come up and fight! Chapter 1877. In the crowd, a pale-faced man shuddered. Frowning, Situ Luyun shook her head. What would come would come. There was no escape. Who is Yunling Feng? I think he's the one who was injured by Su Yi during the test. Ah? Then why is Su Yi challenging that person? Everyone was confused as their gazes fell on the Xinjian gate crowd. Bai Mingshan quickly pushed aside the crowd and shouted. Su Yi, don't push your luck. Do you want to humiliate the Xinjian gate in front of everyone? Yunling Feng's eyes were also sinister. His high cheekbones were tinged with a trace of black hair. His dark, soulless eyes spun around, filled with fear and shock. He had not expected Su Yi's last opponent to choose him. Su Yi naturally had other plans. He had let this brat escape in the demon race's cave. This time, Not only did he want to defeat Yun Lingfeng in front of all the heroes of the world, he also wanted to dig out all of Yun Lingfeng's secret. Look at your hideous disciple. He doesn't look like a disciple of the Xinjian Gate at all. Bai Mingshan's pupils constricted. Su Yi's words were also a pain in his heart. After his seclusion, Yun Lingfeng seemed to have become a completely different person. After his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, his personality had become extremely violent. His entire temperament was like mud that had crawled out of the ground. He was no longer as dashing and carefree as before. But this disciple of his was becoming harder and harder to control. He could only let him do as he pleased. Bai Mingshan's eyes changed rapidly as he whispered to Yun Lingfeng, "Lingfeng, don't go. We've already fought before. Su Yi wants to kill you." Clearly, Yun Lingfeng had not told Bai Mingshan about the demon race's territory in the demonic illusion cave. Bam! A gust of wind swept out as sharp sword chi pierced through everyone's heart. Feeling the sudden pain, everyone immediately took a step back. Let's go." Suruga's eyes were deep, but he still couldn't hide the excitement on his face. This was a chance for Su Yi to clear his name. Without any chance to refuse, Suruga's majestic soul pressure crushed Yun Lingfeng's body, and the latter let out a shrill cry. Yun Lingfeng had no other choice. His black eyes released an endless murderous aura. It was as if thousands of ghosts were wailing around him. Extremely thick black smoke kept spreading out from his 10-fingertip. A strange aura spread across the entire area. Everyone raised their eyebrows and their expressions turned solemn. Some of the weaker cultivators even started to circulate their yuan qi. "What's going on with this guy?" Yanmia Tian's voice gradually became serious. "Devil? There are demons in the Tianyan continent?" Dugu Cheng's eyes shot out as he glanced at Long Qing thoughtfully. Then, he focused on Yun Lingfeng's changes. Sakura Asaka, Gong Qi, and Ryugan River quickly walked away in disgust. They all knew that Yun Lingfeng cultivated the devil's art. However, the Xinjian Gate always turned a blind eye to it, so they didn't bother with Yun Lingfeng. At this time, in front of everyone, Yun Lingfeng was like a withered leaf with a murderous aura. He coldly walked away and looked at Yun Lingfeng as if he was looking at a stranger. "Su Yi, do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Yun Lingfeng shouted. Immediately, he took a big step forward and rushed towards the fighting ring like a black sword that swallowed all light. Su Yi's eyes moved slightly, and the wings on his back spread out rapidly. He flapped a few times and retreated several feet, keeping a distance from Yun Lingfeng. Crack! The sound of his body exploding was endless. Yun Lingfeng was surrounded by a black ball of light, and the endless black yuan qi enveloped the energy of heaven and earth. Suddenly, the screams of countless ferocious ghosts came from all directions. The space in front of Yun Lingfeng crumbled rapidly. When the tiny black shadows surrounded Yun Lingfeng's black ball of light, the ghosts screamed and screamed. God-slaying demon attracting secret technique? The iron soulfish's eyes bulged as he felt the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. He jumped out of the entrance and stood in Su Yi's spirit sea, roaring loudly. Su Yi's eyes trembled. Yun Lingfeng actually knew the legendary Devil Clan's god-slaying demon attracting secret technique. Su Yi, this brat can't be left alive. The god-slaying demon attracting secret technique was an innate skill that only the higher-ups of the Devil Clan knew. It could rapidly increase one's cultivation in a short period of time. Facing Su Yi's provocation, Yun Lingfeng was clearly putting all his eggs in one basket. "Su Yi, I originally wanted to save this technique for later, but I actually used it on you first. You're really courting death." Yun Lingfeng's dry laughter spread through the void, and the clouds became extremely dim under the pervasive black qi. The whole sky quickly darkened, and the clouds in the distance brought with them a few streaks of wind and thunder. The momentum was deafening. On the fighting ring, Draconis was uncharacteristically excited. He took a step forward, crossed his arms, and watched the battle between Su Yi and Yunling Feng. He turned his head and whispered something to the Long family's expert. The corner of his mouth raised slightly, and he nodded from time to time. Did this old dragon discover something? Yen Mietian asked suspiciously. Just as he was about to look at the Dugu family, Duguyuma had already turned her head and used one of her ears to listen to the changes in the arena. Her tender and smooth ears opened slightly, and she took in all the information that she could hear. The vital energy in her hands started to circulate, as though she was preparing for it. Su Yi's mind spun rapidly, and as the vital energy under his feet soared, he knew that Yunling Feng must have obtained something in the Devil Clan's territory, and that was why the devil-attracting secret technique had such a huge improvement. Previously, he had been pretending to be weak because he hadn't mastered the devil-attracting secret technique to great success. The black mass with a strange and sinister luster gradually disappeared, and Yunling Feng's haggard appearance started to become more plump. His facial features were as though they were carved by a knife, resolute and cold. There was no white in his black eyes, and he was sharp like a god. He had an aura from the depths of the earth. His entire body was wrapped in black, and he had a sense of arrogance and sinister aura. Although he was no different from an ordinary person, he was even more handsome. However, the black lines at the corner of his eyebrows sent chills down one's spine. The indifference and calmness made Su Yi frown. Second level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Third level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Fourth level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Yunling Feng's soaring aura instantly stirred up the energy of heaven and earth. The weather changed and heaven and earth trembled. Tens of thousands of meters above the sky, lightning flashed, and white light arcs shook continuously. The raindrops were struck by the continuous thunder, and finally, they fell like a string of pearls. The sun was shining on one side, and the rain was falling on the other. It was an extremely strange scene. Not only did the experts prostrate themselves, but such a shocking scene was definitely comparable to the scene of the dragon god. It gave them the urge to prostrate themselves. This young man is also not ordinary. The martial technique he used is so sinister. But he is so strong. Is it a heaven-grade martial technique? The experts and sect masters looked at the flickering black light before their eyes. It was as though the black light was galloping and leaping. Yunling Feng's figure was constantly growing, as though a devil god had descended to the mortal world. Chapter 1878. Su Yi, what are you going to use to fight with me? The deafening voice was like the roar of a demonic beast as a huge black shadow surged behind him. Yunling Feng held the crimson dragon in his hand as a black demonic dragon hovered in front of him. The corner of Yunling Feng's demonic eyes revealed a trace of killing intent as he tilted his head. He seemed to be enjoying the release of the fourth level of the Origin Emperor Realm. The praises from below made Yunling Feng even more arrogant. The surrounding black radiance swept out as the extremely high temperature cut a huge hole in the space in front of him. In the next instant, to Yunling Feng's surprise, the Emperor Sparrow's shadow appeared behind Su Yi and engulfed the sky with flames. The fiery red flames seemed to burn the sky as they surrounded Su Yi behind him. His eyes were trembling as the golden red patterns spread out. His body was constantly emitting a mysterious milky white radiance. Earth, water, wind, and fire origin chi light rings were attached to Su Yi at the same time. His aura instantly became extremely terrifying. Light against darkness, flames incinerate nothingness. The fire-attributed radiance shot out as though it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Under the horrified gazes of countless experts, a violent cry of a bird broke through the darkness and scattered the sunlight to the world. In the sacred and mighty radiance, Su Yi and the divine bird's eyes shot out intense energy waves at the same time. Instantly, the experts below the origin ancestor realm felt a collision in their mind. Their ears were buzzing, and they felt extremely uncomfortable. Bang, bang, bang. In the cracked and dry air, Su Yi's aura rapidly increased. The terrifying force turned into fiery red flames and dispersed the black ripples into nothingness. The boundless fire-attributed energy wasn't something an Origin Emperor Realm expert could possess. The terrifying aura was enough to destroy everything in the world. At the same time, Su Yi's aura rapidly increased as well. Third level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Fourth level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Tyrant Si Santong, Yuqi Changfeng, and Shangguan Shinzhuo were deeply shocked. The energy in Su Yi's body was actually this terrifying. Previously, Su Yi was only at the second level of the Origin Emperor Realm when fighting with him. Who would have thought that Su Yi was already at the fourth level of the Origin Emperor Realm? Fourth level of the Origin Sovereign Realm. Do I have the qualifications to fight with you? Tyrant Si Santong retracted his shocked gaze and prodded Yuqi Changfeng, who was already in a daze. I don't know. At this moment, Yuqi Changfeng's scalp had already turned numb. Su Yi, whom he once thought he could crush, had been hiding his cultivation base all along. However, he, who was at the 8th level of the Origin Ancestor stage, had not noticed it at all. Was it because his spiritual energy was too low? No. It was because the way Su Yi hid his aura was too special. Yuqi Changfeng comforted himself. The gazes of the three people from the upper reaches turned gloomy at the same time. It was as if Su Yi had dealt a heavy blow to their pride. There were even too many exclamations around him. The atmosphere in the square where the experts gathered was instantly pushed to the peak. The duel between hundreds of people had long made everyone numb and bored. This was a duel between true experts other than the top forces. One in the light, one in the dark. How could it not make people's blood boil and excited? Oh my God, Su Yi is actually at the 4th level of the Origin Sovereign Realm? How old is he? Is he 18 years old? Even Yunling Feng is at the 4th level of the Origin Sovereign Realm? The experts who were clamoring for a crusade against Su Yi had a horrified look in their eyes. Chills shot out from their eyes. If Su Yi were to really fight with them, he might not even be able to last a single move. Looking at the saints and saintesses of the sacred mountain, they were no longer arrogant. They gritted their teeth and said, "No matter how strong he is, he can't be compared to the great saint." Lu Ruoxi's eyes were filled with excitement. Ecstasy rose from the depths of her pupils as she looked at the extraordinary man on the stage with extreme pride. That was the man whom she had finally fallen in love with. Inexplicably, he had grown from a cripple to his current state. The wind and thunder were impressive, and the pressure was overwhelming. From the ripples in the depths of Lu Ruoxi's eyes, it could be seen that Su Yi had reached a level that everyone could only look up to. Su Yi had waited too long for this moment. For this moment, Su Yi had suffered too much. All eyes were focused on Su Yi on the stage. Su Yi said with a chilling tone, "You and I are both at the 4th level of the Origin Sovereign Realm. Tell me, what are you going to use to fight me?" With a smile, Su Yi's starry soul appeared in his palm again. The powerful purple saber light was terrifying as it was aimed at Yunling Feng from afar. Obviously, Yunling Feng didn't expect Su Yi to be at the 4th level of the Origin Sovereign Realm. His snow-white face was filled with black qi as he looked extremely gloomy. His eyes were overflowing with blood-red radiance as he roared at Su Yi. "So what? I can kill you a second time after killing you once. Do you think I'm a pushover?" All of his arrogance was trampled on by Su Yi again and again. Yunling Feng looked like he had gone mad. His long robe trembled as the murderous intent in his eyes filled the air. "Come out." Yunling Feng made his move. Holding the crimson dragon in his hand, His figure was like a black lightning bolt as he stabbed at Su Yi's throat. "Stay calm. This brat has only learned a little," the iron soulfish said in a deep voice. At this moment, Su Yi's gaze gradually stabilized as he looked at Yun Lingfeng, who had already disappeared into the void. The Origin Supreme technique in his body was circulated to the extreme as a heavenly aura that couldn't be offended burst out. It was domineering, imposing, and destructive. When he leaped out, he aimed at a small angle to his left and slashed at it. Chi La. The heavenly origin demon's soul circulated rapidly, expelling the bloody aura brought by Yun Lingfeng. The heavenly origin demon's soul let out a violent sound of metal clashing. Suddenly, a huge blade spun, and an earth-shattering crimson radiance filled the air. Su Yi shouted loudly, "Back off!" Boom! The Origin Supreme technique in Su Yi's body exploded with a vast and majestic aura. Wherever the blade passed, the entire space rippled. It tore apart the heavens and earth that were surrounded by layers of demonic chi and broke through the evil that looked down on everything. The darkness was instantly destroyed. The boundless black chi in the air immediately retreated like a tide. The aftermath was endless. In the darkness of the void, a black light could be heard rapidly retreating behind him. Su Yi was also shocked. Although he had already cultivated the Yuanyang heavenly dragon bone and the diamond body, the attack of demonic chi still couldn't be underestimated. The blood in his body was surging, and Su Yi swallowed back a mouthful of blood. Looking at Yun Lingfeng, who was sent flying, Su Yi's eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Good. Su Yi, you're worthy of me fighting with all my strength. Accept the baptism of the demon god." The crimson dragon was wrapped in black chi, and the entire space suddenly erupted with tens of thousands of black clouds. Yun Lingfeng took out a bead-like object and swallowed it. Suddenly, a bloody aura filled the air, and the distorted space was like a tight fried dough twist. The sharp sword aura fluctuated, and the black light was oppressive. Yun Lingfeng, who was retreating, quickly straightened his body. The monstrous murderous intent in his eyes expanded rapidly, and his aura suddenly soared several times. "It's still rising. Is this guy crazy?" Chapter 1879. Everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment as they stared at the two figures in the sky. The surging aura around him quickly caused the space to ripple. Yun Lingfeng's eyes were slightly sunken, and his bright and ferocious eyes were bloodshot. His aura of the fourth level of the Origin Emperor realm quickly increased by another level, and his skin and bones rapidly swelled. His skin was filled with blood, and his veins were like worms. The black lines at the corner of his eyes were like demonic beasts, and his eyes were filled with rage. "Su Yi, I want you to die today." Su Yi could clearly sense any aura on the battlefield. What Yun Lingfeng had just swallowed was definitely the demonic beast pill. Swallowing the demonic beast pill would not allow one to completely digest the demonic nature even if they had demonic chi. Swallowing the demonic beast pill with his flesh. This guy is simply courting death. Tai Hun's eyes darkened, and there was a trace of coldness in his eyes. Facing Yun Lingfeng, who was constantly getting stronger, the eyes of the experts below almost popped out. To think that an unknown first-rate force would have someone with demonic chi that could instantly increase his cultivation by so many levels. This kid is extremely talented, but it's a pity that he has taken the wrong path. An old man with a long beard kept shaking his head and sighing. This is simply a wrong path. I don't know if Su Yi can take it. Lingfeng, don't use the secret technique anymore. You will die. The harsh voices of objection and disdain poured into Yun Lingfeng's ears along with the wind. Suddenly, there was a faintly discernible coldness in his jet-black eyes. His figure suddenly floated, and with a light flick of his finger, the sound of wind breaking instantly exploded. A surge of black aura turned into lightning at the tip of his finger, and rushed towards Bai Mingshan's forehead. Yun Lingfeng's voice was extremely sharp as he shouted loudly. "Old man, shut up!" Bai Mingshan obviously did not expect that his beloved disciple would actually point a sword at him. Suddenly, he was dumbfounded and stopped moving. Even his eyes had stopped moving. As a streak of black light rapidly approached the eye socket, it became smaller and smaller. At the same time, several energy fluctuations wrapped in huge amounts of origin chi cut off the path of the black light. The black light had an intense and vast aura. There was no way out. Under the combined attacks of Situ Luyun, Suruga, and the others, a small black light still managed to escape. Pucci. Bai Mingshan was still very confused. Before he fell, his eyes were still in a daze. After his tears fell, his soul was instantly surrounded by the black gas. "Quick, circulate your qi and push the devil qi out," Suruga shouted angrily, waking Bai Mingshan, who was still in a daze. Why? Feng why did you become like this?" Bai Mingshan clenched his fists and channeled his energy to seal both of his acupoints. His fingernails dug into his palms as he sighed softly. Everyone's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Could the demonic sword qi really be so devoid of humanity? Yun Lingfeng shook his long robe, and his hair danced in the wind. His entire temperament was ferocious, and his face was extremely gloomy. It seemed as if he was looking down on the world. "You can't achieve great things. Why are you still obstructing me here? What does everything that happened to me today have to do with you? If you dare to say anything more, I'll kill you immediately." Sui couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Compared to Nangong Hang, this person had truly gone mad. Sui circulated the Origin Supreme technique, and a trace of coldness appeared in his eyes. A holy aura like that of a heavenly venerate surged. Sui swept his gaze towards Qi Jiuzhen of the demon-subduing sect. Qi Jiuzhen's eyes were burning. Now that Sui was looking at her, she naturally knew what he meant. She immediately felt ashamed, and her beautiful face turned pale as she lowered her head. "Sui, you arrogant thing! You still have the time to look around when you're fighting with me?" Yun Lingfeng's eyes were gloomy. Looking at Su Yi's indifferent expression, his heart was boiling with anger. "If you want to kill me, we'll have to see if you have the ability to do so." Su Yi's face gradually turned gloomy, and the starry in his hand gradually turned gloomy. Faint purple star runes revolved around it, mixed with the majestic energy of heaven and earth. "Right, since you can even kill Master, you won't stay in Xinjian Gate anymore. If that's the case, I'll just kill you. I don't mind a Xinjian Gate without you." With a smile in his eyes, Su Yi's words greatly encouraged the people of Xinjian Gate. Suruga's eyes were also moved. Could it be that Su Yi was going to return to Xinjian Gate? He was already the master of a sect, and every move he made contained great power. If he really came back, even Situ Luyun wouldn't be able to suppress him. Countless thoughts flashed through Situ Luyun's mind, but the only thing she was certain of was that if Su Yi came back, Xinjian Gate would definitely prosper. Who knows, Xinjian Gate might become the #1 sect in Zhong State in my hands. Situ Luyun's throat began to churn. Her originally vigorous aura also began to fluctuate due to her excitement. "Then let's see if you're qualified." A blood-red light flashed in Yun Lingfeng's eyes. Then, his silhouette teleported into the air. Then, he waved his hand, and a black light beam swept out at a high speed. The entire space trembled, and the demonic Yuan Qi was like a poison that could corrode everything. The moment the demonic Yuan Qi surged, the space rippled in an extremely strange direction and angle. Waves of terrifying fluctuations spread out from the huge black mass behind Yun Lingfeng. Immediately, dark clouds gathered in the entire sky, and the earth shook. Gloomy and desolate, blood and qi gushed out. Following the black's tacit understanding, The heavenly star-frightening soul in Su Yi's hand was like a god. Upon encountering the crimson dragon, it was extremely excited, and without using any strength, the entire saber light covered the sky and earth as it violently slashed out. Dazzling starlight circulated, shaking the sky with a destructive power. The wings of the Emperor's sparrow behind him flapped, and the combination of flames and starlight rushed towards the black light, shattering the space in its path. Go to hell! The huge impact caused the vast energy to explode in an instant, and a vast expanse of darkness surrounded the entire battle stage. From the outside, it looked like a huge black storm had blown up. The 9 heavens shook, and the wilderness shook. The experts from the first-rate forces and top-notch forces all swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and a trace of disbelief appeared in the depths of their eyes. Fight! It's best if you kill Su Yi. Save me the effort. Shangguan Shunjua narrowed his eyes, and his gaze was as cold as lightning. What's the background of this Yunling Feng? Su Yi can actually withstand it. Tyrant Si Santong looked calm, but Yuchi Changfeng kept rubbing his palms, and the faint smile at the corner of his mouth made people's hair stand on end. The huge attack engulfed the entire battle stage, and it was so dark that nothing could be seen. Lu Ruoshi looked at the terrifying power that engulfed the entire sky, and her face turned pale. Between heaven and earth, the river of stars flowed with extraordinary splendor. In the vast and endless darkness, there were occasionally traces of dazzling starlight's saber scars. My lord, is Su Yi all right? Lu Ruoshi cried out in panic. She did not know when it started, but Su Yi's safety and every move of his affected her soul and 7 spirits. The lord shook his head, but he looked up and said indifferently, "Your heart has already been given to him." Chapter 1880. Buzz! Lu Ruoshi's fine black hair danced in the wind. Her red lips parted, and her eyes were filled with melancholy. Her curvaceous body instantly stiffened. His words had woken her from her daze, and she was too timid to reply. Bang bang! The fierce wind was still spinning. Lu Ruoshi raised her head in panic, clenched her slender hands, and gritted her teeth. She quickly flew to Duanmu Xiaoman's side. Lu Ruoshi's actions were seen by countless martial artists. A lovely and charming girl like an orchid in an empty valley was actually so concerned about Su Yi. Suddenly, everyone's desire to kill Su Yi grew even stronger. Why did he get all the benefits? Why did all the beauties belong to him? Lu Ruoshi lowered her beautiful eyes, and her cold face was filled with anxiety. She mustered up her courage and asked, Duanmu, Sister Duanmu, your cultivation is heaven-defying. Can you please tell me if Su Yi is all right? Lu Ruoshi's eyes were burning with anxiety. Tiny beads of sweat had never appeared even when she was fighting. He's fine. As his woman, I have to believe in him. Duanmu Xiaoman's translucent jet-black hair brought a layer of ice to the ground. Her eyes as bright as stars were filled with determination. Hearing this, Lu Ruoshi's cheeks flushed. She instantly calmed down and returned to her usual calmness. Sister is right. Standing side by side, Lu Ruoshi no longer concealed herself. Together with Duanmu Xiaoman, she watched the fierce battle on the stage. Under the illumination of the light, the 2 peerless beauties each had their own merits. Just standing there was already a beautiful scene. In the blink of an eye, the stage was covered with cracks that extended all the way to the spectator's stand. The wide and deep ravines were like hooking chains. Countless martial artists trembled rapidly. They were afraid that they would not be able to participate in such a battle. Huge sonic booms resounded through the clouds. Large areas of space began to explode, and the overwhelming energy quickly swept through the space. In the darkness, blazing flames and decaying dark chi gathered together. Under the reversal of the galaxy, all kinds of energy gathered together to form an attack that shocked everyone. GG. The sound of the cloud piercer breaking through the air was extremely loud and clear. In the darkness, it was as if a sacred flame that brought hope had swallowed up the entire Milky Way. In the billowing Yuan Qi storm, Yunling Feng gradually came out of the darkness. Puqi! He coughed up a mouthful of blood, and his expression changed as he looked at Su Yi, who was smiling coldly in the distance. I admit that your flesh is strong, but why? Why aren't you afraid of my demonic energy? Recalling the rapid exchange just now, Yunling Feng's gaze focused. His own devil qi erupted from the crimson dragon and was quickly swallowed up by the heavenly star soul in Su Yi's hand. Even though the remaining energy wasn't weak, when it hit Su Yi's body, it only left a faint white mark before it quickly disappeared. Furthermore, the demonic qi that could corrode everything was completely ineffective against Su Yi. Su Yi said in a deep voice as he spun the saber in his hand. Purple saber shadows filled the sky, making him look like a majestic saber god. Under the orders of the old ancestor, I have taken back the crimson dragon. The heavenly star soul is destined to be the nemesis of your crimson dragon. Su Yi's aura was cold and arrogant. Under the support of the divine ring, his aura was domineering and had an extraordinary temperament. Endless flame energy soared from his body. It was incomparably sacred, as if it could suppress everything. Yunling Feng couldn't help but tremble. The hands holding the crimson dragon were trembling non-stop. The throbbing from the bottom of his heart began to surge into his cold eyes. His eyes trembled as he roared. I can't lose. I can't lose. Immediately, the violently shaking black light once again released an extremely terrifying aura. A faint dragon roar drifted out from the crimson dragon's body. Su Yi, you are not my nemesis. Today I will kill you. Yunling Feng looked up. In his gloomy eyes, a monstrous yin qi filled the air. It was obvious that he was furious to the extreme. Su Yi didn't hesitate and quickly deployed the demon god battlesuit. The heavenly star soul immediately drew a long blade light. The fiery red arc turned the entire space extremely hot. Under the illumination of the fire, Yunling Feng's face turned pale. Blood kept flowing out from his 7 orifices. It became cold and bone-piercing. Break! In an instant, countless blazing blade lights shot out from Su Yi's body like a chain of energy light sheet. Yunling Feng's body forcefully changed its trajectory. He turned into a cloud of soft black smoke and followed the heavenly star soul's blade light. Enduring the intense pain, Yunling Feng let out a miserable howl in the black smoke. The blade light seemed to have lost half of its energy. The black smoke instantly expanded countless times. When it reached Su Yi's side, Su Yi's eyes flickered. Blood Phoenix rends the sky. Su Yi didn't hold back his cultivation realm anymore. The 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm surged out rapidly. A large amount of energy surged out from the great void divine ocean. The tip of the blade spun rapidly and summoned an unparalleled flaming dragon. It carried the Emperor Sparrow's shadow with it and shot towards the black smoke. In the black smoke, 2 dark eyeballs were spinning continuously. At this moment, Yunling Feng was regretting. You are actually at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm. How is this possible? Yunling Feng howled miserably. His voice was filled with fear. Blood Phoenix rends the sky, piercing through clouds and splitting rocks. The sky-shaking shriek didn't stop for a long time. Like a flash flood, the scorching hot energy instantly shattered the entire space. Bang! Yunling Feng was hit by the Blood Phoenix rends the sky, which was comparable to the Origin Ancestor realm. He was severely injured. The black smoke turned into steam and dissipated rapidly. In the chilly fluctuation, a pitch-black spatial crack flashed across the space. The palm with a huge scar suddenly stretched out and pulled the huge black smoke out. Oh no, this brat is trying to escape again. Su Yi, who had just executed the Blood Phoenix rends the sky, felt his qi and blood surging. With a slight lack of energy, a heavenly star blade radiance shot out again. Bang! A large patch of black smoke was revealed. From the black smoke, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. In the face of the violent energy that tore open the spatial crack, the entire energy surged out. In an instant, wherever the black smoke passed, the divine weapon, which was emitting a dragon's roar, was lying on the ground. Damn it, he still managed to escape. Su Yi's eyes were bloodshot. With some regret, he walked forward and sensed the remaining aura. This aura. It's so familiar. The Long family. Did the Long family save him? Su Yi's eyes turned gloomy. Golden patterns surrounded his body. The golden dragon aura, which was like a divine pattern, circulated rapidly and absorbed the remaining aura in the space. His eyes turned gloomy and cold. He picked up the divine weapon that had killed him that day. In an instant, the demonic aura within the ominous sword seemed to have exploded and occupied his mind. The iron soul membrane whistled softly. The 5 black spots in Su Yi's mind flickered rapidly. That dense killing intent spread without any obstruction. Puny demonic aura, how dare you act so rashly? The iron soulfish sneered. Chapter 1881. Su Yi hadn't seen the red dragon divine weapon for a few days, but he was still shocked, and his blood was boiling. As the monstrous demon Qi retreated, the heavenly origin demon's soul released a dazzling light like the sun. The demon Qi turned into pure heaven and earth energy and flowed into his Dantian sea of Qi. The demon Qi contains such a huge amount of energy? Su Yi couldn't help but feel puzzled. He drank half a bottle of spiritual liquid, and all the pores on his body opened up and connected to the heaven and earth energy. His body was recovering at an incredible speed. Touching the place where he was pierced, Su Yi shook his head and smiled bitterly. He immediately took back the starry sky soul. The red dragon divine weapon let out a sharp roar, and an amazing golden spear pierced through the layers of darkness. The whole fighting ring was cut in half in an instant. Duanmu Xiaoman's long gaze anxiously watched the situation on the field. Amidst the haze, Duanmu Xiaoman frowned slightly. Someone went in. Who is it? She murmured, and her eyes passed through the black fog and fell on Draconis. They are so strong. These 2 guys have a bright future. Did you see it clearly? Who won? The warriors in the audience were discussing. They couldn't figure out what was going on, and the fighting ring full of demon Qi became mysterious. The spectating experts' gazes were solemn. The strength of the 2 of them had already reached an unimaginable level. Above the battle stage, a pitch-black void appeared. Within the chaotic space, everything had turned into fragments. The monstrous devil Qi gradually dissipated and rose into the air, turning into a mass of black clouds. Who is it? Who came out? The crowd could vaguely see a figure walking out of the black fog, and they all started to guess. Qi. The sound of silk tearing was suddenly heard, and the black fog was cut open by a cross-shaped sword light. At the same time, the long fiery red wings on the back of the newcomer shook slowly. The rising black fog was accompanied by the fluctuation of the air, and the sound of wind and thunder resounded like thunder from the 9th heaven. Among the aristocratic families, Long Ao's eyes were cold, and several cultivators from the aristocratic families stood up. Yun Zhongli's eyes shone brightly as he spread his soul energy to the fighting ring where Su Yi was. Duguyuma, Su Chen, Su Wan'er, Yunliang, and Lan Xiaoyan took a step forward at the same time. Their mouths were slightly agape as they felt the sharp and murderous aura sweeping through the area. Duguyuma listened attentively. His fan-like eyelashes fluttered rapidly. His blood-red lips curled up slightly as he whispered. What Mu Yang said makes sense. You are barely qualified to be my opponent. Su Chen frowned when he heard this, and he looked at the figure in the mist with slight anger. Wind and thunder were raging in the surroundings, and the howling of the wind could be heard everywhere. The howling of the remaining souls could be heard everywhere. The black fog turned from dark black to light black, and then to gray-white. A large area of space instantly froze. Bai Mingshan, who had been injured by Yun Lingfeng, had an ashen face. His tiger-like eyes were filled with loneliness. With the help of two Xinjian Gate disciples, he anxiously looked at the situation within the black fog. The two of them will have an ending in the end. Situ Luyun sighed. This time, Xinjian Gate could be considered to be in the limelight in the entire Tianfeng ranking tournament. However, it was not in the usual way. His body could not help but move forward with his hands crossed. His eyes were full of prayers. Situ Luyun already had an answer in his heart. Of course, he hoped that Xinjian Gate could end in a righteous way. Great ancestor Xinjian had spent his entire life slaying demons and protecting swords. He founded Xinjian Gate with the name of Divine Sword. His lifetime of fame could not be ruined by his own negligence. The green robe fluttered in the air, and the ragged corner of the robe was lifted high up by the chilly wind. The destructive sword power broke the last layer of dark mist, and a young man walked out from the dark mist, looking determined and calm. The moment he walked out, the man's eyes were clear and his aura was calm. Divine rings intertwined around his body. Mysterious and unpredictable strange energy surrounded him. He was like a young human emperor. His aura was extraordinary, domineering, and destructive. An extremely powerful aura spread out from his feet. Every time he took a casual step, the cracks below the stage would deepen by an inch. The space exploded, and a baleful energy that could topple mountains and overturn seas instantly rushed into the sky. A vast and boundless energy of heaven and earth poured into everyone's faces like a cool breeze. Everyone was stunned. If the person who came was not Sui, who else could it be? Dong, dong, dong. At that moment, everyone's hearts seemed to have stopped. They watched as this godlike young man walked steadily toward Xinjian Gate. Thump, thump, thump. Their hearts were beating wildly, as if they would jump out of their chests in the next second. Everyone, including Situ Luyun, had a trace of ecstasy on their faces. Yun Lingfeng did not appear, but he had completely defeated the remaining fire in Bai Mingshan's heart. He closed his eyes faintly, and his old body went limp at the last second. 2 streaks of tears flowed down his trembling lips. His entire face was dispirited and pale as he sighed bitterly. I lost. I still lost in the end. These words were clearly directed at Suruga, but Suruga did not show any joy. But from his tightly clenched fists, one could see the pride and unyieldingness in Suruga's heart. 2 years ago, he had saved them, but he had not expected to receive the most terrifying talent in the history of Xinjian Gate. More than a year ago, he had missed a golden opportunity and allowed Sui to escape from Xinjian Gate. This was not only a loss to Xinjian Gate, but also a pain that Suruga could not bear to part with. When Suruga found out that Sui was not dead, only the heavens knew that this was the happiest thing that had happened to Suruga in decades. And in front of him, Sui was calmly walking toward him, holding the ancestor's divine sword in his hand. The flames behind him soared into the sky, incomparably mystical. That was the pride and arrogance in Suruga's heart. All of his arrogance, all of his forbearance, all of his pain, all of it had been vented out by Sui at this moment. The sword Yama Suruga from back then had finally shone in the Tianfeng ranking competition. Instantly, everyone present had turned into light and slipped away. On the vast and boundless square, everything had become so heroic. The 2 youths' faces slowly overlapped, and the 2 unyielding faces overlapped in an instant. The 2 of them had been implicated by Duanmu Qingtian at the same time, and had mysteriously become master and disciple. What kind of fate was this? Perhaps only Suruga knew that in the near future, Sui would become the most powerful person in this world, and the knot in his heart would finally be untied along with Su Yi's strength. Su Yi's face was filled with unprecedented respect, and his eyes seemed to radiate with light and ripples. Looking at the short but strong figure in front of him, he knew that this was his true master in the Tianyan continent. It was him who had brought him back from the barbaric demon forest and saved him from the fire and water. It was also this old man who had rushed in front of him and faced the siege of the Xinjiang Gate's elders for him. It was also him who had stepped forward bravely several times during the sacred martial assembly. In his impression, Su Yi's image of his father was already too blurry. Looking at this old man again, Su Yi's eyes gradually moistened. Holding the scarlet dragon divine weapon with both hands, a sharp dragon roar soared into the sky, shaking the heavens. Su Yi knelt on one knee, holding back the sourness in his nose and the tears in his eyes. Borrowing the power of the White Flood Dragon Divine Weapon's sound wave technique, he shouted loudly, "Disciple Su Yi! Greetings, Master!" Chapter 1882. Disciple Su Yi! Greetings, Master! Disciple Su Yi! Greetings, Master! Disciple Su Yi! Greetings, Master! The sound waves reverberated throughout the square. Under this final attack, the battle platform behind him turned into fine powder and was blown away by the wind into the distant sky. Su Yi's excitement was hard to recover. Su Yi had been holding back these words for a long time. He didn't dare to meet Suruga because he had chosen to leave Xinjiang Gate that day. That was because he had no other choice. At this moment, Mu Yao's words echoed in his heart. "I'm really happy that Su Yi is able to do so well in the outside world, but I didn't teach him enough at that time." Su Yi was able to comprehend sword will on his own and use it to such an extent. He's really a good seedling. I'm not worried at all that he's being chased by the Holy Mountain. If he doesn't even have this bit of presence, then he's not worthy of being called my disciple. These words couldn't be any more simple. But to Su Yi, who had experienced all the hardships of the world, it was like a bowl of warm soup delivered to his heart in the depths of winter. Suruga had never spoken much with him. Even when he taught him, it was only a few words. Everything depended on himself. But Su Yi knew from the bottom of his heart that this elder really cared about him. Even if it wasn't for a long time, he still taught him with all his heart. The help from the wind and the fire several times made Su Yi even more certain that Suruga would be his master for life. His care was like a mountain, and his teachings were like the sea. Subconsciously, he had always kept the teachings of simplicity in his heart. After leaving Xinjiang Gate, not visiting Elder Su Yi was extremely vexed. Not taking the initiative to look for Su Yi and demon-subduing sect was also an unbearable pain in Su Yi's heart. Arrogant and unrestrained, he dared to ask the sun, moon, and stars to shoot. Su Yi, who had never knelt before the heavens or the earth, was now going to formally kneel before Suruga in front of thousands of people. He was going to use all his strength to thank this old man who hid his endless love and care in his heart. Why do I feel like crying? Some of the young experts actually wiped away their tears when they saw this touching scene. Sigh. What a contrast. One wanted to kill his master, while the other loved his master. This is the difference between us. Su Yi, I don't seem to hate him that much anymore. She seems to admire him a little. Even Yen Mietian, who had always been arrogant and straightforward, felt his eyes turn red. How could such a righteous youth be so hateful? In an instant, Su Yi's arrogance was completely restrained. Wind and thunder rumbled in the surroundings. The destructive energy was still swirling in the air. The terrifying energy covered the sky and blew Su Yi's long hair up high. At this moment, it was time that truly belonged to Su Yi and Suruga. Everyone's gaze softened as they watched the conversation between the old man and the young man. It was as if it was a normal scene. Dong dong dong. Suruga nodded slightly. Her dim yellow eyes were full of splendor. She tried her best to control her facial expression and walked towards Su-yi. Looking at the red dragon that Su-yi raised above his head, she naturally understood that this divine weapon was taken back by Su-yi for Xinjian Gate. Su-yi wanted to prove for Xinjian Gate that the Xinjian Gate was not evil. This was the glory of the ancestor and the only pride of Suruga's life. Her withered hands trembled as she touched Su-yi's shoulders. Suruga, who was not good with words, looked more and more dignified and said with a dry voice, "Strong." In a trance, Su-yi raised his eyes and looked at the kind and serious face. It was the mark of vicissitudes left behind by the passage of time. All the gratitude and hatred had lost their meaning in this pair of eyes. The words, strong, instantly defeated the thousands of words in Su-yi's heart. Su-yi had prepared a lot of words. His blood and chi were surging, and a mass of pride was surging in his stomach, but they were instantly wrapped up by this water-like gentleness. "Master!" Su-yi's eyes were brimming with tears as he sincerely called out to his master. The valley echoed for a long time. At this moment it was both mighty and tender. Most of the eyes began to moisten. Many young warriors were touched, and their bruises made people feel sorry for them. "I want to go home. I want to see my grandpa." Gong Chi's eyes were filled with tears, and her eyes were burning. "Master, I miss you." Sakura Asaka's eyes were also filled with tears, and her watery eyes could not stop blinking. At Jutian Palace, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyebrows moved slightly, and a pearl light was well hidden. Lu Ruoshi was already sobbing. "This kid. Why is he not fated with the sacred mountain?" The Lord sighed in a low voice, and his sword-like eyes swept over Yuchi Chongfeng and the sacred flame elder again. Suruga's expression had calmed down, and his eyes were calm. However, it was this calmness that made the people around him tremble. You must have suffered a lot outside." Su-yi wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes, and said softly when Suruga helped him up with a bright smile. "Not at all. Master, you always care about me. I dare not say that I have suffered a lot." Suruga shook his head, and his eyes were full of praise. He looked at Su-yi from head to toe and sighed. "Now that you have reached such a level, I can't teach you too much." Hearing that, Su-yi shook his head firmly. He raised the red dragon divine weapon in his hand again, and glanced at the crowd. "That day, Yunling Feng used this sword to assassinate me in the Divine Sword Valley. Today, I have retrieved it for the Xinjian Gate. This is the Sword of Rebirth. Master, you have saved me from danger several times, and I am indebted to you for rebirth." After that, Su-yi took a step back, bowed his body, and handed the divine weapon to Suruga. "This is Su-yi's gift for acknowledging you as my master. Please accept it, master." Countless people stared at the red dragon divine weapon in Su-yi's hand. This was a divine weapon. Just now, Yunling Feng used this divine weapon to fight Su-yi to the death. It was said that this divine weapon was left behind by the ancestor. When used, it could definitely increase one's combat power by more than one level. Suruga looked at the divine weapon with a burning gaze. He took the divine weapon with a solemn face. Clang! The sword chi was pointed at Xianyuan. Suruga waved it casually, and the whole world was restored to clarity. A domineering dragon roar that was many times stronger than before resounded through the world, shaking everyone's eardrums to the point of pain. "Good sword." That was the common recognition of everyone. Suruga looked at the divine weapon of the Xinjian Gate with a complicated expression and sighed softly. "Divine weapon Red Dragon. It's a pity that the devil chi is too strong and harmful. As a member of the Xinjian Gate, I can't destroy the ancestor's item." After that, Suruga threw the divine weapon to Su-yi. His eyes were cold, as if he had handed the entire Xinjian Gate to Su-yi. This divine weapon is yours to deal with. Chapter 1883. The crimson dragon soared into the sky, and the gleaming blade revealed a trace of cold light. Looking from afar, the entire divine weapon had an extraordinary aura, and the mighty golden dragon patterns surrounded it. The blade that flew high into the sky instantly turned into a long golden dragon that occupied the sky. The clouds in the surroundings moved, and the heaven and earth trembled. Roar! The divine aura descended. Compared to the dragon aura of the Long family, it carried a kind of invincible spirit that was destined to look down on the common people. Holding the divine weapon, Su Yi's deep eyes emitted a peerless radiance that was domineering and sharp. A mighty aura instantly spread out from his body. As if he had traveled through time and space, the combination of the demonic aura and dragon aura covered Su Yi with a layer of absolute confidence and might that looked down on the world. It was as if this divine weapon originally belonged to Su Yi. The vast demonic aura rolled over and enveloped the surroundings. It was as if he was the true owner of this divine weapon. Everyone's eyes trembled. When Su Yi raised the crimson dragon high above his head, his aura was extraordinary. That sword is in Su Yi's hands. It's like a natural sword. Isn't that sword a demonic sword? How can there be such a terrifying sword? Looking at the violent aura that swept across the sky, everyone's expression changed, and there was a rapid fluctuation in their eyes. The demonic aura spread out, and the majestic aura quickly filled the air. The blazing aura swept across with an ancient wind, and the entire world shook. In the void, there were faint remnant souls that swept across, and accompanied by demonic beasts rampaging in all directions. Everyone was dumbfounded, and their eyes trembled. The things hidden in this divine weapon were getting more and more terrifying. If it wasn't in Su Yi's hands, anyone in the Origin Emperor realm would probably be possessed by the inner demon at any time, and it would be irreversible. His green robe and black hair fluttered in the wind, and extremely bright rays of light appeared on his body, as if divine chains were intertwined. The hands that were holding the crimson dragon moved slowly, and after drawing a strange arc in the air, it was heavily inserted into the ground. Suddenly, the violent energy exploded continuously, and a monstrous aura swept across the field. Bang! After a dull sound, the entire place was in an uproar. The huge gully pattern extended to the feet, and the sound of discussion could be heard. This brat's soul power is extremely powerful. I'm afraid the quality of your soul must be heaven-defying as well. Yan Mietian's eyes flickered as an extremely appreciative smile appeared on his face. Dugucheng and Yi Yi found it hard to calm down when they heard Yan Mietian's words. Without the systematic cultivation of a sect, he was actually able to have such monstrous talent at such a young age. This young man is extraordinary. Dugucheng's face was full of praise. His long and narrow eyes were filled with a sharp luster. At the same time, Yi said to Lan Balian behind her, "Liener, you have great foresight." Lan Yelian's eyes were filled with surprise and excitement when she heard this. Su Yi had brought her more and more miracles. She had a faint feeling that something was amiss. Su Yi, in the near future, even the aristocratic families might not be able to accommodate such a genius. Feeling Su Yi's majestic soul pressure, Yun Zhongli's expression was solemn, but there was still a trace of praise in his eyes. Draconis and Long Tsang, who had been standing at the side silently for a long time, also had some fluctuations. Su Yi had completely revealed his cultivation of the fourth level of the Origin Emperor realm. Without any concealment, Su Yi's thoughts fluctuated. He took a deep breath, and a resplendent golden radiance became more and more dazzling and eye-catching. "Master, I have temporarily suppressed the demonic aura of this demonic sword. When your disciple has the chance, I will find another way to completely destroy it." Suruga's calm face surged with a trace of astonishment. The fact that Su Yi's soul power was far more powerful than his cultivation made his heart feel like a raging wave. In the blink of an eye, Suruga looked towards the direction of Yutian Palace. He couldn't help but understand. He smiled and nodded his head. Looking at the entire place, the father and son had already become the center of attention. The ranking competition hasn't ended yet, let's talk about it later. Suruga patted Su Yi's shoulder kindly as a trace of astonishment flashed across his face. Although his palm was slightly painful, Su Yi's shoulder muscles and bones that weren't considered broad were much tougher than before. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face. Returning to the stage, Su Yi's gaze was solemn as he faced Draconis, who was standing in front of him. Their sharp gazes met across the air. Profound versus firm, tit for tat. Instantly, the entire atmosphere became heavy and oppressive. Su Yi shook off the dust on his shoulder and kept the crimson dragon back into his spatial bag. Can I continue to the next match? Draconis's eyes revealed a trace of splendor with a smile that wasn't a smile. He was still as arrogant as before as he said with his hands behind his back. As expected, you have exceeded my expectations. Of course, the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament is to select elites. Those who practice unorthodox methods will naturally be eliminated. Let's continue with the next match. This sentence was obviously directed at Yunling Feng. Below the stage, Bai Mingshan's entire body trembled when he heard this. Su Yi had never seen such a depressed expression on his face before. Yan Mietian interrupted Draconis. His eyes were shining as he pointed at Su Yi and said loudly, "Boy, what are you going to do with that demonic sword of yours?" This was the first time since the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament that an aristocratic family had directly spoken to a genius. Aristocratic families had always been secretive and powerful. They were the supreme authority in the entire Tianyan continent. Looking at this middle-aged man, Su Yi unexpectedly felt close to him. Perhaps it was because they both cultivated the fire attribute, or perhaps it was because he was from the Shuchen sect, but Su Yi smiled for the first time, revealing a bewitching but not evil smile. "Palace Master Yan, I don't have any good ideas at the moment. This divine weapon was made by ancestor Shin Jian from a meteorite from outer space. Without a specific method, it's very difficult to completely destroy it." Yan Mietian rubbed his chin as he stood up and said in a deep voice, "You're not bad, boy. The Thunder Fire Temple has a secret place called the Pagoda Sea of Flames. You can take it there and try it." Yan Mietian, one of the top 5 experts in Tianyan continent, personally invited Su Yi to the Thunder Fire Temple? Didn't that mean that the Thunder Fire Temple had recognized Su Yi's strength? If he could get the favor of any of the forces, he would definitely skyrocket. He would rise even faster than the first place in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. Suddenly, the faces of all the experts from the top forces and first-rate forces froze. Their gazes on Su Yi changed from envy to jealousy. Especially dominating Si Santong and Yuchi Changfeng. They had always considered themselves as the younger generation, but this boy who came out of nowhere had beaten them to it. If he got the Thunder Fire Temple, he could probably destroy any sect with a flip of his hand in the future. More importantly, it was obvious that Su Yi was above the young people of any aristocratic family. How could they not be angry? Shangguan Shinjua clenched his teeth and a feeling of regret surged in his heart. If he hadn't been fooled that day and killed Su Yi directly, he wouldn't have had the chance to be so powerful today. Chapter 1884. The gazes of the cultivators below the stage were so hot that a single spark could ignite a vast ocean. They looked at Su Yi's back as he walked away like a young god. The envy in their hearts turned into tears. Who asked him to not have a heaven-defying talent, a beauty, and the favor of an aristocratic family? However, Su Yi's gaze met with Su Chen, who was nodding vigorously behind him. In the end, he shook his head. Kid, you should find a way by yourself. If there is really no way, I will come and disturb you again. Unless it was a critical moment, Su Yi would not have any relationship with these aristocratic families. Especially when he knew that these aristocratic families were related to the Duanmu Qingtian's whereabouts, Su Yi's heart was filled with ripples. Duanmu Xiaoman's heart was also relieved. Her crescent brows relaxed as she looked at Su Yi's figure. Her eyes were even more charming. The 1,000-year-old ice in the depths of her eyes had long been melted by Su Yi's fire. Ha ha ha! The sky-shaking laughter rolled the air waves. The clouds in the sky were instantly pushed away by the sound waves. Countless small flying demonic beasts were swept away by the energy waves and flew away in panic. Boom! Looking at Yen Mie Tian, who was laughing wildly, Su Yi quickly circulated the Origin Supreme technique in his heart. His eyes were deep and calm. The darkness was mixed with unfathomable depth and maturity. He was not moved at all. Su Yi's calmness attracted Yen Mie Tian's admiration. It was hard to imagine that someone would be indifferent to the invitation of the Thunder Fire Temple. The Pagoda Sea of Flames was the place where Yen Mie Tian cultivated in seclusion. It was said that the Pagoda Sea of Flames stretched for thousands of miles. Endless waves of fire were endless all year round. The intense fire attribute energy inside was a paradise for cultivators of fire attribute energy. It was indeed a hell for cultivators of other attributes. Not a single blade of grass grew, and the world was crimson red. The Pagoda Sea of Flames was extremely hot. If an Origin Emperor cultivator were to enter directly, they would be melted into slag in less than 10 seconds. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. This was not a place that anyone could enter. It was no wonder that Su Yi would refuse so casually. Fine, do as you wish. If you need anything, just let Void Dust know. Yen Mie Tian then sat down in a grand manner. His wild nature gave people a sense of heroism. Puzzled, Su Yi's heart skipped a beat. This Yen Mie Tian looked like a brute on the surface, but he was actually very meticulous. He had actually seen through him and Su Chen. Su Yi couldn't help but say in a low voice, "Big guy is quite strong." Su Yi raised his sword-like eyebrows. He bowed in the air and said, "Thank you, Flame Sovereign." Below the stage, when they heard that Su Yi had rejected the Thunder Flame Temple's request, everyone's eyes fell to the ground. They stared blankly at Su Yi in disbelief. He had given up on his greatest opportunity. He can give it to me if he doesn't want it. You really don't know how lucky you are. Damn it. Sigh. Could it be that the brains of geniuses are different from that of normal people? A cold voice came from the sacred mountain. Yuchi Changfeng snorted coldly and said, "He doesn't even want the Thunder Flame Temple's invitation. This guy is really arrogant." As soon as he finished speaking, the Lord turned around and said in a low voice, his eyes filled with coldness, "I didn't expect that you would kneel in front of the Long family. The Holy Emperor must be blind to have chosen a beast like you." Yuchi Changfeng's face was gloomy. The Lord, who had always been gentle, suddenly attacked him. Yuchi Changfeng was a little embarrassed. He blinked his eyes and said coldly, "Is the sacred mountain going to be without an owner?" The Lord's face instantly turned cold. A strong killing intent swept out from between his eyebrows. Yuchi Changfeng subconsciously took a step back and his eyes were full of horror. "After Tianfeng, if you dare to do anything wrong again, I will kill you immediately." Then, the Lord no longer looked at Yuchi Changfeng. He turned his head and looked at the stage. Yuchi Changfeng's body trembled slightly. The way he looked at the Lord changed from bewilderment to a sneer, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Old woman, you will suffer in the future." A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Somehow, he felt the aura of the Xiahong house next door. Yuchi Changfeng blinked his eyes and ignored it. "Shuchen?" The Holy Fire Elder's fiery red robe shook slightly. His withered hands in his sleeves were rubbing quickly. All of a sudden, Holy Flame's eyes widened as if he had recalled something terrifying. Slowly, he took a deep breath and sighed, "No wonder you could escape from me. With such ability, the sacred mountain will be in trouble." The Holy Fire Elder's eyes trembled as he looked at Shuchen and Sui. His heavy breathing began to tremble. Then, his face turned pale. The mighty wind and clouds stirred, and the thunderclouds in the sky squeezed together. The whole world seemed to be on the verge of exploding. Terrifying energy circulated. Dugucheng and Yi both said sarcastically, "I never thought that you would be the first to attack." Dugucheng's eyes flashed. He walked towards Sui with heavy steps and said loudly, "Sui, the Myriad Sword Alliance is a good place to practice swords. If you are interested, you can come to my Heavenly Punishment Sword Mountain." Yi flung her sea-blue robes, her gentle and elegant face filled with sincerity. She said to Sui, "The Endless Sky Sea region has countless treasures. Refining this demonic energy sword is nothing difficult. When you have time, I'll have Lin Lian entertain you." All of a sudden, the three aristocratic families sent invitations to Sui at the same time. All the warriors present thumped their chests and stamped their feet. Some of them were confused. Is this an invitation from an aristocratic family or from three aristocratic families? No way. Oh my God. Don't compete. Let Sui be the first. Are you as talented as him? There were wails from below. Everyone's eyes were red with envy and jealousy. Some of the sex experts even kicked their disciples and reprimanded them for being rude to Sui. With your cultivation, you still want to challenge Sui? All of a sudden, the entire area was filled with the voices of the sex instructors. Every young warrior was already covered in scars. Coupled with the scolding of the sex experts, they grimaced in pain. The hatred and jealousy in their eyes for Sui deepened. The three people from the upper reaches were also indignant. They clenched their fists. Why did this brat get benefits from the aristocratic families again and again? Sui, I will kill you. I will kill you. Shangguan Shenjue finally couldn't suppress the hatred in his heart. If Shangguan Juehu hadn't held him back, he would have already rushed up to the stage. Sui obviously didn't expect that he would be recruited by three aristocratic families at the same time. He looked at Lan Linlian. The look in her eyes was as gentle as water. The meaning in her eyes had already gone beyond the scope of an ally. Suyi's heart tightened and he hurriedly looked away. Yi added, "Oh right, if the ninth holy maiden and goddess Yutian have time to accompany you, the Tianlan Sea area will welcome you at any time." Yi glanced in the direction of Bai Ling, Shi Susu, and Han Yuro. She once again felt admiration for Sui. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.